Chapter 1036. In the center of Blue Leaf City, there was a manor that looked like a small city. The manor was divided into 5 parts: east, west, south, and center. 2 young women were sparring in the training field of the southern manor. Of these 2 women, one was Lanshina, and the other looked a bit like Lanshina. However, her face was more angular, and she looked very cold. This was Lanshina's older sister, Lanshina. She was ranked 2nd among Planet Firebird's 10 heroes. Ding ding ding, the sound of swords clashing rang out incessantly. Sparks flew everywhere, and when the aftershocks spread out, mysterious ripples appeared around the martial arts field. These ripples had the effect of absorbing the aftershocks, so although the fight between the 2 seemed to be extremely intense, the damage caused was rather limited. Sister, be careful. Illusion. A blue misty rain burst out and enveloped Lanshina. With a flick of her wrist, the light blue sword in Lanshina's hand was like a flowing spring. It merged with the blue misty rain and attacked Lanshina. Lanxiana had a hard time dealing with the previous illusory heart. The only reason she was able to do so was because Lanshina's swordplay wasn't very proficient. She hadn't reached the stage where her heart and sword were connected. Even so, Lanxiana was shocked. 5 years ago, in terms of swordplay, Lanshina was much weaker than her. She even helped her modify the illusory heart. Could it be that Lanshina had improved so much in the past 5 years that her swordplay was catching up to her? The illusory heart's suppression on her was too great. Once the illusory heart appeared, Lanshina could no longer reverse the situation. However, at that moment, a powerful sword force exploded from her body. She used force to break Lanshina's sword light. Hey, sister, the power you used just now was more than mine, Lanshina smiled. When they sparred, they always used the same amount of power. It was just swordsmanship. You win this time. Lanshina let out a breath of turbid air and smiled. Putting away her sword, Lanshina said, I'm satisfied to be able to beat you by 1 move. Next time, let's have a proper spar. The so-called sparring was to test each other's sword techniques. Lanshina didn't think that her sister would lose to her in a real fight. Her opponent could easily disrupt her sword techniques in the middle of the fight, instead of allowing her to use them freely. Okay. Lanxiana nodded and asked curiously, is this the result of your 5 years? No, on the way back, a powerful swordsman taught me. Although we've only been together for a dozen days, I feel that my understanding of sword skills has deepened. Lanshina thought of Yi Chen. A powerful swordsman. Could he be an elder? Lanxiana subconsciously thought that the person teaching her was a famous swordsman with a lot of seniority. This kind of thing happened often. Some seniors would occasionally teach young people they liked and even take them in as disciples. Prince Jinghong, who was ranked 1st among Planet Firebird's 10 heroes, was taken in as a disciple by an emperor-class swordsman. Big sister guessed wrong again. The one who taught me was a young swordsman. He looked even younger than me, probably only 36 or 37 years old. Lanshina seemed to enjoy seeing her sister being defeated. She blinked her eyes. A 36 or 37-year-old swordsman taught you? Lanxiana was really shocked. 36 or 37 years old was indeed too young for their realm. Planet Firebird's 10 heroes were all over 40 years old. Don't underestimate this gap of 3 or 4 years. It was very likely that their strength had increased tenfold. It seemed that only those geniuses on the Heavenly King list could be this powerful at this age. Lanxiana couldn't help but be extremely curious about the young swordsman her sister spoke of. Tell me about him, Yi Zichen said. Lanxiana said. Okay. Lanshina didn't keep her in suspense. She told her everything that had happened to Yi Chen on the Blue Leaf. When she talked about how Yi Chen had defeated Yi Chen in 1 move, a strange light flashed in Lanxiana's eyes. According to her sister's description, she guessed that Yi Chen had used the vibration sword art. However, being able to knock away Yi Chen's sword and shatter his arm without using true yuan meant that the other's research on the power of vibration had reached a terrifying level. You're saying that you only used the illusion sword art once, and he already pointed out the flaw and modified it. Lanxiana couldn't help but blurt out. Lanshina nodded, That's right. At that time, his suggestion was the same as yours. But when I told him that the modified illusion heart and illusion dream couldn't be combined, he immediately raised his opinion. He said that your modification wasn't thorough enough and didn't get to the point. In the next 10 days, a new illusion heart appeared. Amazing. I really want to meet him. An intense battle intent surged in Lanziana's eyes. As a sword artist, there was no one who didn't want to fight against a powerful sword artist. She had fought against Graceful Prince dozens of times, but the latter had an emperor-grade sword artist guiding him. She was not his opponent at all. Moreover, Graceful Prince's cultivation base was also higher than hers, having reached the 5th layer of life and death realm. He occupied a spot on the Heavenly King list, although his ranking was quite low. I also want to meet him. The illusion heart has been modified, but the illusion dream has not. Only after these two moves are modified will I be able to see the true essence of this mysterious sword art. Lan Xin sighed. Second lady, there's a young sword artist outside looking for you. He asked me to inform you. Suddenly, a guard ran in and said loudly, "Young sword artist? Is it young Master Yi?" Lan Xin's eyes brightened as she said, "Is he wearing blue clothes?" "Yes." The guard nodded. "Bring him here, quickly." Soon, Yi Chen arrived under the guard's lead. "Young Master Yi." Lan Xin went up to greet him. "Lady Xin, Yi Chen is here to visit. I hope I didn't disturb you." Yi Chen had a smile on his face. While speaking, he sized up the elegant lady beside Lan Xin, and this is my sister Lan Xin. Sister, he is the Yi Chen I mentioned. Lan Xin introduced the two. "I'm Yi Chen. Nice to meet you." Yi Chen nodded. "Lan Xin, I've heard about you from Xin. Thank you for helping her modify her sword art." Lan Xin nodded and sized up Yi Chen. Yi Chen, dressed in blue and carrying a sword, gave people a quiet and slightly mysterious feeling. There was no sword aura on his body, but it was impossible to ignore. It seemed that he could cut the sky and earth with a wave of his sleeve and walk freely in the starry sky. Of course, this was purely Lan Xin's subconscious feeling. Ordinary swordsmen couldn't sense this. Lady Xin is talented and intelligent. I just gave her some pointers. Yi Chen could see that Lan Xin was more than 10 times stronger than Lan Xin. Whether it was sword aura, sword essence, or aura, they were all much stronger. "Young Master Yi, this way please. I'll make you some tea." On the small lake next to the training field, there was a pavilion. Lan Xin invited Yi Chen to the pavilion. Taking a sip of tea, Yi Chen said directly, "Lady Xin, I came here this time to ask you for a favor. If you think it's too troublesome, then don't force yourself." "What is it?" "As long as I can do it, I will definitely agree." Lan Xin asked, "Can you help me sell these demons battleships?" Yi Chen took out a demons battleship from his storage ring. It was 700 to 800 meters long and floated above the lake. Large puppet battleships. They belong to the demons. Lan Xin couldn't help but say, "Indeed, I took this demons battleship from the demons. However, the aura on it is too obvious, and it could easily attract the attention of the demons. So, I want to sell it." Lan Xin laughed, "It's a piece of cake. We humans and the demons have always been enemies. Getting their demons battleships is normal. These demons battleships can be modified to remove the demonic aura on them, so the demons won't be able to recognize them." "You said that there are more of them?" "9 more. Yi Chen nodded. "Hiss." Lan Xin and Lan Xin exchanged a look. Taking 10 large demons battleships in one go was not an easy task. Usually, when the large demons battleships appeared, the demon army would definitely appear. There would be a lot of demon kings inside. So, how did they get 10 demons battleships? Of course, they wouldn't get to the bottom of this. This was someone else's secret. These demons battleships are large king-class battleships. Their price is between 30 to 50,000, but not lower than 30,000. I can only give you 300,000 Primeval stones for 10 of them. I'll give you the rest after I sell them." Lan Xin said. "No problem." He was already very satisfied that she was willing to help him with this. Where can I buy a Heavenly King-class battleship? Yi Chen asked again. Lan Xin'er answered for Lan Xin'er. The Flaming Bird continent has 3 main cities. Only the main cities have Heavenly King-class battleships for auction. As far as I know, in 3 months, Flaming City will hold a large-scale auction. At that time, there will definitely be a Heavenly King-class battleship. Flaming City? Yi Chen had already memorized the names of all the cities on the Flaming Bird planet. Flaming City was more than 3 million miles away from Lanya City. Next, Yi Chen handed the 10 Demons battleships to Lan Xin'er. Lan Xin'er withdrew 300,000 Primeval stones from the Lanya family and gave it to Yi Chen. Young Master Yi, I'm very interested in your sword skills. I wonder if I can spar with Xian. After the business was done, Lan Xin'er asked Yi Chen for a spar. All right. Yi Chen was very straightforward. After all, Lan Xin'er had only helped him once. No matter what, he had to give her sister some face. This way, please. Lan Xin'er didn't expect Yi Chen to be so straightforward. He gestured with his hand. When they arrived at the training field, Yi Chen and Lan Xin'er stood dozens of meters apart. As for Lan Xin'er, she stood far away, holding her breath. I wonder how intense this spar will be. Please. Lan Xin'er pulled out her red sword. Her eyes sharpened. Even from a distance, Lan Xin'er felt a prickling sensation on her skin. She had experienced her sister's strength more than once or twice. Chapter 1037. Go all out. Yi Chen did not pull out the demon-slaying sword. He merely stood there, and a faintly discernible sword aura locked onto Lan Xiana. It was different from other people's sword aura. Yi Chen's sword aura contained softness within hardness and hardness within softness. Under the lock of this sword aura, Lan Xiana felt a subtle sense of fear for the first time, and her hair stood on end. What level of sword aura is this? Lan Xiana knew that if she did not make a move now, she would not have the courage to do so. Yi Chen's strength was beyond her imagination. The Yi Chen that her sister Lan Xin'er spoke of was not as strong as the Yi Chen in front of her. No, it was not even half as strong. Facing Yi Chen, she felt that she was full of flaws and was full of danger. Wind God leaves. Lan Xiana immediately used her ultimate move. Her figure flashed, and a blazing red light slashed out. This red light seemed overbearing, but in reality, it was extremely agile and ethereal. It was like a fallen leaf in the autumn wind. Any breeze could change its trajectory, making it difficult for the opponent to guard against it. Good move, but it's better to be more pure. With a ding sound, sparks flew everywhere. Yi Chen blocked the sword. Hurricane Divine Fire. Using the power of Yi Chen's sword, Lan Xiana's body shot up into the sky. In the next moment, she swooped down in an even more ferocious manner. Her red sword swept out, and a strong scarlet hurricane swept across the world. It was powerful, but if one really thought that this move was overbearing and rough, they would be wrong. Yi Chen clearly felt that the scorching hurricane sword aura contained countless vortexes. They grew and multiplied endlessly, advancing wave after wave. Once one fell into this hurricane sword aura, they could only passively take a beating, as if they were trapped in a swamp. Good move. Yi Chen didn't retreat, but advanced instead. His figure flickered, directly cutting into the hurricane sword chi. However, what made Lan Xiana alarmed was that Yi Chen's figure was like a ghost that didn't seem like a human's body. There was no gap in between, and he forcibly passed through. As he passed through, the hurricane sword chi was like a wave that had been split apart, spraying to the sides. Ding! Metal and iron clashed, and the red sword in Lan Xianer's hand flew out of her hand. Then, Yi Chen's sword was pointed at the space between her eyebrows. It was clean and efficient, without any hesitation. Lan Xin'er, who was watching from the side, was dumbfounded. Her sister had been defeated without any suspense. Compared to her sister's sword technique, Yi Chen hadn't used any powerful sword technique at all. He seemed to have completely seen through her sister's sword technique's flaw and then magnified it to the limit. Lan Xianer's expression changed several times as her treasured sword was knocked away. Clang! Sheathing the Demon Slayer sword, Yi Chen said, There are actually no flaws in your sword technique. However, in the end, everything has to be simplified. You should develop in the direction of simplicity and not rigidly adhere to the form. Once you achieve the goal of simplifying and returning to complexity, you will have new insights. There was no difference between complexity and simplicity. One was acquired, and the other was innate. They were used to verify each other. When your sword technique was incomparably simple, it could move towards complexity and change. When it reached the limit of complexity, it could become simple, and then continue to be complex. It was an endless cycle, with almost no end. Of course, the further you went, the more difficult it would be, and the more powerful it would be. Destroying the world and creating the world would only take a single thought. Please guide me on my sword technique. Out of the expectations of Yi Chen and Lan Xin, Lan Xian suddenly bent down and begged Yi Chen for guidance. She was not her sister, Lan Xin. After sparring with Yi Chen, she knew how terrifying Yi Chen was. Perhaps in the previous exchange, he had only revealed a trace of his ability. The killer move, Hurricane God Fire, was invulnerable in her eyes. Even Prince Jinghong had to rely on absolute strength and speed to break it. However, in the eyes of Yi Chen, it was so fragile that it could not withstand a single blow. The mysterious swordsman in front of her had completely conquered Lan Xian's heart. She knew that if she did not ask Yi Chen for guidance today, she would regret it for the rest of her life. Sister. Lan Xin had just recovered from the shock, and her expression immediately froze. In her impression, her sister was a person who looked tough on the outside but was soft on the inside. She was swift and decisive, sometimes very stubborn, and very opinionated. She had never thought that her sister would throw away her pride and ask Yi Chen for guidance. Yi Chen smiled bitterly. The other party's action had stunned him for a moment. Forget it. It doesn't matter if it's one less or one more. Does your Lanya family have a place for forging swords? Yi Chen did not reply directly. Yes. Our Lanya family is a family of swordsmiths. We have dozens of swordsmithing courtyards. I will arrange the best one for you, Lan Xin said. Thank you. During this period, if I have time, I will come here to give you some pointers. Yi Chen could not waste his time on the two of them. He could only occasionally give them pointers. You agree? Lan Xian's face lit up. The swordsmithing courtyard that Lan Xin arranged for Yi Chen was one of the three great courtyards of the Lanya family, the Earthfire courtyard. Of course, the courtyard was mainly used for resting. The place for forging swords was 1,000 meters below the courtyard. The Firebird star was a fire-attributed star. The temperature and purity of the Earthfire were very high. After being processed by the Flame Gathering Array, the Flame Amplification Array, the Flame Purification Array, and the Flame Condensation Array, the flames produced were as red as blood. They could melt almost any top-grade metal without any effort. Ding ding dang dang. Having found a suitable place, Yi Chen started to forge the great sword day and night, without sleeping or resting. However, Yi Chen did not just casually forge top-grade swords. He planned to start with top-grade swords of the metal and water elements. Because he had already perfected the metal and water profound, the success rate should be much higher. The higher the success rate, the more profit he would make after recovering his costs. In the blink of an eye, half a month passed. Yi Chen walked out of the scorching hot ground. What made him dumbfounded was that Lan Xian and Lan Xin were sitting on the grass in the courtyard. From their posture, it seemed like they had been sitting there for many days. What are you doing? Yi Chen said helplessly. Lan Xian said seriously, waiting for young Master Yi to come out. When I come out, I will inform you. There is no need to waste a lot of time here, Lan Xian said. If we don't even have this little bit of patience, we are not worthy of young Master Yi's pointers. As for wasting time, I don't think so. Waiting will make our hearts more peaceful. It is not like we will not gain anything. Then let's begin. Miss Xin, let's start with you. Yi Chen promised to help Lan Xin modify the dream. Okay. Lan Xin nodded excitedly. This modification took 3 days. This was not because the modification of the dream was difficult, but because Lan Xin could not understand Yi Chen's modification. Fortunately, Lan Xian had been training with her. After 3 days, Lan Xin gradually mastered the new dream and improved significantly. When it came to Lan Xian, Yi Chen did not help her modify the sword moves. The other party's sword moves were self-created and could not compare to the ancient sword techniques that Lan Xin had obtained from the mysterious mystic realm. No matter how good the modification was, it would only treat the symptoms and not the root cause. If the modification was too good, it would become Yi Chen's sword moves and not Lan Xian's. Therefore, Yi Chen only pointed at Lan Xian's weak points. For example, the most basic swordsmanship. Do not underestimate the basic swordsmanship. Any powerful swordsmanship was made up of the basic swordsmanship. It was just like the entire world was made up of energy particles. The better the basic swordsmanship, the better the foundation. It was like a skyscraper. If the foundation was not solid, the skyscraper would have safety problems. It could not be built higher or stronger. Before entering the sword world, Yi Chen's basic swordsmanship had already reached perfection. No one in Elysium could compare to him. After entering the sword world and seeing countless kinds of swordsmanship, Yi Chen's basic swordsmanship had reached the pinnacle. It was not an exaggeration to say that even the swordsmanship of the Snow Sword of Gojosian and the Star Sword King was very immature in Yi Chen's eyes. At the beginning, Lan Xian did not think much of Yi Chen's pointers. She thought that he was looking down on her. But after one day, Lan Xian was completely convinced. The ordinary basic swordsmanship in Yi Chen's hands was like a god. It was to the point of turning something rotten into something magical. For example, when she did not use any true yuan, will, or sword power, a simple stab was 10 times stronger than hers. It was clearly the same amount of power. Basic swordsmanship can allow you to truly understand the way of the sword and understand how to control the sword energy. Don't think that comprehending the profoundness is everything. In fact, profoundness is also a way of using power. Before forging the sword, Yi Chen said a sentence that was easy to understand to Lan Xian. As for how much she understood, that was not something he could control. Sister, what do you think young Master Yi's background is? Why do I feel like he knows everything? There are no secrets in his eyes. Looking at Yi Chen's back, Lan Xian came over. Lan Xian said, there are countless geniuses in the universe, like stars in the sky. There are also many geniuses of the way of the sword. There will always be a few geniuses who walk in front of everyone else and understand mysteries that others do not. Young Master Yi is one of them. Time flowed like water. There was no turning back. It was already the last few days of the 3rd month. In the depths of the Earthfire courtyard. In 3 months, I've scrapped 4 swords and forged 2 defective ones. However, I've also succeeded in forging 2 swords. 2 swords floated in front of Yi Chen. One was gold with a tinge of blue, filled with a masculine golden aura. The other was blue with a tinge of ink. The body of the sword seemed to contain a vast ocean. When forging a supreme-grade treasure sword, even a supreme-grade swordsmith's success rate was not very high. A 50% success rate was already a top supreme-grade swordsmith. A 30% success rate was a rather famous supreme-grade swordsmith. Although Yi Chen's talent in sword forging was not inferior to his comprehension of the way of the sword, his foundation was still shallow. His success rate was only above 10%. The treasure sword with a tinge of gold with a tinge of blue was a metal attribute sword. It was a low-grade supreme-grade sword. Yi Chen had named it Star Cutter, meaning that it was unstoppable and tyrannical. The sword with a tinge of ink with a tinge of blue was a water attribute sword. It had reached the mid-grade supreme grade. Its name was Vast Ocean. The sword's power was vast and endless. Chapter 1038. On the ground, Lan Xin and Lan Xin were both practicing their swordsmanship. Sir Yi. Seeing Yi Chen come out, the two stopped. You've both improved a lot in the past 3 months. Miss Xin, your swordsmanship is more decisive than before, and your sword intent will break through to level 7 soon. Miss Xian, Your basic swordsmanship is improving every day. If you have another 3 months, you should be able to reach a higher level. Next, you'll have to rely on your own hard work. Relying on others can only last for a while. Yi Chen's eyes were as gentle as water. He swept his gaze over the two, as if all their secrets were no longer secrets to him. Sir Yi, are you going to Fire City? Lan Xin'er asked. I've been on the Firebird planet for a while now. It's time to look around. I hope to see a new you the next time we meet. Goodbye. After saying this, Yi Chen directly rose into the sky and flew out of the city. He really left just like that. Lan Xin'er pursed her lips. Don't worry. The next time we meet, Lan Xin'er, will improve to a level that will shock you, Lan Xin'er murmured with a determined look. The greater the pressure, the greater the improvement. The pressure on a planet with life is still too small. In the sky outside the city, Yi Chen thought to himself. Lan Xin'er and Lan Xin'er's talent was not much weaker than Elysium's Du Guju and the others. However, in the same realm, their battle strength was barely satisfactory. In Elysium, the alien race's calamity was everyone's nightmare. In order to survive the calamity and defeat the invasion of the demons and the evil spirit race, everyone was desperately evolving. This kind of humiliation and pressure made them continuously become stronger and break through their limits. Swoosh! His protective true yuan rubbed against the atmosphere as Yi Chen flashed into the sky like a spark. Yuan Qing, have you heard? 3 months ago, the rising sun sword king, Yu Chen, was defeated by a mysterious swordsman on the blue leaf. It's said that he was defeated with one sword. The light red sky was as brilliant as fire. 2 figures flew side by side, their speed exceeding 1,000 times the speed of sound. The one who spoke was a young man on the left, with a shallow scar on his cheek. That's right. Although Yu Chen is a bit weaker than us and can't be ranked among the Firebird planet's 10 heroes, he is not a pushover. Defeating him with one sword strike is not an easy task. The bald youth on the right nodded. I'm not surprised that Yu Chen was defeated. What I'm concerned about is why young Master Firebird didn't make a move. Could it be that he's afraid of trouble? That makes sense. Don't be arrogant. However, that is just his appearance. Otherwise, he wouldn't be ranked above the 2 of us, said the scarred youngster with a smile. If there was a knowledgeable person here, they would definitely recognize these 2 youths as Luo Yinkong and Yuan Qing, who were ranked 6th and 8th among the Firebird planet's 10 heroes. Although Luo Yinkong's strength was only ranked 6th, his Qinggong was only below young Master Jinghong's, and Yuan Qing's hammer technique was exceptionally domineering. He was known as the Shattered Star King. Perhaps, young Master Firebird. One day, I will defeat him. Clenching his fists, Yuan Qing said. He, we can talk about the future in the future. Let's speed up. This time, the Fire City's ranking meeting was actually held 3 days in advance. Luckily, we got the news early. Luo Yinkong smiled and increased his speed. Indeed, on the Firebird planet, one's speed can only be increased to 1% without any resistance. The starfire continued to increase its speed, its outer layer burning with pure flames. In Elysium, once one's speed reached a certain level, one would be able to escape into the void, and the friction with the air would not be as strong. However, on the Firebird planet, no matter how fast one's speed was, one would not be able to escape into the void. This led to the higher one's speed, the greater the friction. Every time one increased their speed, the pressure they had to bear would multiply, and the consumption of Jin Yuan would also multiply. The speed gradually slowed down, maintaining a speed of 1,500 times the speed of sound. Yi Chen did not want to waste too much Jin Yuan. He could fight with people for 3 days and 3 nights, or even 7 days and nights. However, he had a feeling that if he kept increasing his speed, his Jin Yuan would be exhausted within 2 hours. This was an extremely frightening consumption rate, and it was also the law of the universe. The faster one's speed was, the more kinetic energy they would need. Even if he was proficient in the space profound, he could only slow down this rate. Fire City was one of the 3 main cities of the Firebird continent. It was different from the other cities. Flying was prohibited in the sky above Fire City, and everyone had to enter the city through the main gate. This was because the city lord of this city was the Lee Flame Mystic Emperor. In the universe, if one wanted to become an emperor, their cultivation base had to be at the 7th sky of life and death realm, and the Lee Flame Mystic Emperor was a 7th sky of life and death realm warrior. On the street outside the east gate of Fire City, there were countless figures of people. The number of people could not be counted. "We're finally here." Luo Yinkong and Yuan Qing landed on the street and walked toward the east gate. Hey! Suddenly, the two raised their heads at the same time, looking at the sky. That is. Swoosh! A tall figure descended. His figure was extremely heavy, giving off the feeling of a mountain or a vast ocean. However, when he landed on the ground, he felt as light as a feather, landing without a sound. It was as if the weight of his body had disappeared, and it was just an illusion. As this person landed, the surrounding noise disappeared completely, replaced by a deathly stillness. The people in the vicinity felt as if their bodies had gone numb, unable to move. Even moving a finger was difficult. Their eyes fixated on the descending figure as cold sweat dripped down their foreheads. What a frightening blade chi! Luo Yinkong and Yuan Qing's pupils dilated as they remained motionless. The person who came was very young. He looked to be in his 20s. His appearance was cold and extraordinary. He had a head of wild black hair. His eyebrows were like knives, and his eyes were like knives. His fluttering clothes gave people a kind of domineering sharpness when he drew his knife. His figure was tall and straight. He was more than 2 meters tall. Standing there, he was like a saber that could support heaven and earth. Lifeless blade artist, Lung Feifen. Luo Yinkong uttered these words with great difficulty. Crack! All of a sudden, Luo Yinkong's entire body seemed to have been electrocuted. His heart stopped beating, his blood stopped flowing, and his eyes became sluggish. All of this was caused by a casual glance from Lung Feifen. Too powerful. Is this the lifeless blade artist Lung Feifen from the king list? In the distance, many people looked over. Lifeless blade artist Lung Feifen came from the giant blade star. He was 44 years old this year, and was at the 4th sky of life and death realm, ranked 7th on the heavenly king list. He was a horrifying genius with a peerless talent for blade Dao. His blade arts were said to have reached the level of lifeless and deathless. Under one blade strike, even ghosts and gods would find it hard to escape. As for the king list, it was a monster list. In order to enter this list, one had to be under 50 years old, and be a genius among geniuses. This list only had 100 spots. Anyone on the list had an extremely frightening strength. Among the 10 heroes of the Fire Bird Star, only the first-ranked Jinghong Prince had entered the list. However, even with his cultivation base at the 5th sky of life and death realm, he was only ranked 94, completely incomparable to Lung Feifen. Lung Feifen had once been praised by an expert who had surpassed the 7th sky of life and death realm, saying that he was one of the geniuses who had the highest hope of reaching the peak of Blade Dao. Therefore, everyone recognized that within the same realm, Lung Feifen was almost invincible. Even the top 6 monstrous geniuses on the king list could only suppress him with their cultivation base. Such a frightening blade artist had actually come to the Firebird Star, to the Fire City. Could it be that there was something he wanted in the auction? Just as Lung Feifen was about to step toward the east gate, another figure flew over from the sky. Swish! The figure landed on the ground. It was a young man in blue robes with a long sword hanging on his waist. His long, elegant hair was as black as ink, without a trace of dust. It was Yi Chen. This guy dares to land next to Lung Feifen? He's really not afraid of death. Everyone was alarmed to find that Yi Chen had no intention of avoiding Lung Feifen. He directly landed beside the latter, and the distance between the two was no more than 10 meters. However, Yi Chen's arrival also startled Luo Yinkong and Yuan Qing. They retreated repeatedly, increasing the distance between them. The blade chi on the latter's body was too frightening. Even if it was released unintentionally, it was still not something they could endure. No matter how a lion tried to disguise itself, it was still a lion after all. Its aura and innate power could not be concealed. Lung Feifen was undoubtedly a lion. Interesting. I can't believe I met a blade artist who has developed his cell will to such a level. Yi Chen sized up Lung Feifen. The reason why the latter's blade chi was so frightening was because his cell will was extraordinarily powerful. Each of his cells contained a frightening blade intent. This meant that the latter's power control had already reached a higher level, far surpassing Dugu Ju. While Yi Chen was sizing up Lung Feifen was also sizing him up. Their gazes collided. Swish. Blinding electric sparks exploded in the air, which was a sign that the will of a gaze was affecting the environment. Shit, retreat now. The crowd felt like their souls were struck by lightning, causing them to retreat even further. They did not expect Yi Chen to be such a terrifying presence. They could not withstand the confrontation between the two. Lung Feifen unleashed a saber aura as if he was trying to test Yi Chen's strength. The saber aura tore the air apart, as if the heavens and earth were being split in half. Yi Chen let out a smile as the vague sword aura on his body was automatically activated. At the same time, the space suddenly stopped for a moment, but it was soon concealed again. Pop! A soft sound was heard, as the space between the two became empty. You're very strong. Lung Feifen left and headed toward the east gate. Dugu Ju, you'll be excited if you're here. He's a blade artist who's far ahead of you. Yi Chen headed toward the east gate as well. Not long after the two left, the place they were standing before suddenly shattered into pieces. Marks of saber and sword intertwined with one another, resulting in a shocking scene. Chapter 1039. In the afternoon, Fire City's auction began. As a large-scale auction that was held once every 3 years, the auction house was packed to the brim. Everyone present was a life and death king. Those below the life and death realm didn't even have the qualifications to enter. In a VIP room in the corner, Yi Chen sat on a soft bench that he had bought with 100 yuan stones. Taking a sip of the supreme-grade wine prepared by the auction house, Yi Chen thought to himself, Vermilion Bird Starfield has countless geniuses, 100 times more than Elysium. Apart from Vermilion Bird Starfield, there are still Azure Dragon Starfield, White Tiger Starfield, and Black Tortoise Starfield. That blade artist should be called Lung Feifen, ranked 7th on the Heavenly King list. He comes from White Tiger Starfield's giant blade star. Yi Chen had already heard of the Heavenly King list. It was indeed a monstrous ranking. The Firebird Starfield's graceful prince, who had a cultivation base of 5th layer life and death realm, was only ranked 94th. And Lung Feifen was ranked 7th with a cultivation base of 4th layer life and death realm. He was a monster among monsters. Without a fight, I won't know whose battle strength is higher. Yi Chen was very clear that he was not invincible in this world. Plus, Lung Feifen's cultivation base was 1 level higher than his. Between geniuses, even the slightest bit of weakness would create an irrecoverable gap. Unlike ordinary people, Yi Chen saw an extremely frightening potential in Lung Feifen's body. This potential was like a demonic god. Once it exploded, it would definitely tear the sky and earth apart, frightening even ghosts and gods. This was also the reason why he did not dare to say that he could beat the latter for sure. On the wide auction stage, an old man in a red robe walked out. The old man's cultivation base was not weak, having reached the 3rd layer of life and death realm. Ladies and gentlemen, the triennial Fire City auction has officially begun. Please don't make any noise, and don't leave your seats without permission. Maintain silence. The first item will now be auctioned. Without wasting any time, the red-robed elder had someone bring up the first auction item. The first auction item was a low-quality battle axe. Its entire body was crimson red, just like a soldering iron. The back of the axe was wide and flat, and the edge of the axe was as sharp as a knife. The main materials used to forge the battle axe were red copper and fire cloudstone essence. It naturally contained a powerful fire energy, and because of the size of the battle axe, it could be used for both defense and offense. The starting price was 100 source stones, and each increment must be no less than 10 source stones. In the end, this battle axe was bought by a life and death realm warrior for 260 yuan stones. The second item was a pair of extreme-grade armor boots. The main material of the boots was the flying feather iron. It was not a particularly precious extreme-grade metal, but with the addition of the flying feather iron, it was as light as a feather. When worn on the body, it did not take up any weight at all. Moreover, once Shen Yuan was poured into it, it would activate the flying feather iron's power, doubling the speed. It was very popular. Not long after, this pair of metal boots containing flying feather iron was auctioned off for 300 primordial stones. The third item was a jade letter containing a secret martial art. The starting price was 200 yuan stones, and it was sold for 500 yuan stones, landing in the hands of a short elder. The fourth item was also a weapon, an extreme-grade mid-grade spear. The starting price was 300 yuan stones, and each increment must be no less than 10. It was bought by a life and death realm warrior who specialized in using spears for 570 yuan stones. The following items all ended up with a very high price. The highest one was a full set of extreme-grade armor, which reached a shocking 2,200 yuan stones. The ninth item was a Heavenly King-grade treasure pill, the Dao pattern pellet. This pellet could increase the chances of breaking through to the next realm. From the first layer to the second layer, it could increase the chances by 100%. From the second layer to the third layer, it could increase the chances by 90%. From the third layer to the fourth layer, it could increase the chances by 50%, and from the fourth layer to the fifth layer, it could increase the chances by 10%. As soon as the pellet was brought out, the whole place was shocked, and the bidding voices rose one after another. 3,000 yuan stones. 3,200 yuan stones. 3,500 yuan stones. 4,000 yuan stones. Within a couple of breaths, the price of the pellet had increased to 4,000 yuan stones, which was already the price of a small king-level battleship. There is such a pellet. It was Yi Chen's first time hearing about a pellet that could increase the chances of reaching the next realm. If he could get his hands on this pellet, he might not have a 100% chance of reaching the fourth level, but he would have at least 80 to 90% chance. After all, from the third level to the fourth level, it would increase the chances by 50%, which was not something to be trifled with. However, Yi Chen also believed in one thing: pellets were only external objects. They might be able to help you for a while, but not forever. If he guessed correctly, using the pellet to increase one's cultivation would indeed make one happy for a while, but it would definitely lead to the instability of the martial arts foundation. If one wanted to reach the next realm, the difficulty would be doubled, or even several times higher. Only those life and death realm warriors who had exhausted their potential would be interested in the pellet, because without it, they might need hundreds or even thousands of years to reach the next realm. If they continued to reach the next realm, they might not be able to do it in their entire life. In that case, it would be better to use the pellet to increase their cultivation first. The pellet is a good thing, but unfortunately, we geniuses never use it. In another VIP room, Luo Yin Kong said. Yuan Qing nodded. In the end, the pellet was bought by a grey-haired elder for 5,500 yuan stones. The atmosphere of the auction reached a climax, and the heated discussions continued without end. The 10th item is a Heavenly King Realm Great Blade, the Time Blade. The main material of the blade is the Time Stone. A fingernail-sized Time Stone is worth 100 yuan stones. This Time Blade has the size of half a fist. Now, let the bidding begin. The starting price of the Time Blade is 6,000 yuan stones. Each increment must be no less than 100 yuan stones. Even Heavenly King Realm weapons had different grades. A normal Heavenly King Realm weapon would only be worth 3 to 5,000 yuan stones, but a good Heavenly King Realm weapon could go as high as 10,000 yuan stones. The main material of the Time Blade was the Time Stone, which was even more powerful. It was said that once a normal person touched the Time Stone, they would immediately age, and after forging the blade, they would become even scarier. 7,000 yuan stones. 8,000. 9,000. 10,000. There were a lot of King Realm blade artists on the scene, and the price of the Time Blade instantly broke through to 10,000. 15,000. Suddenly, an emotionless cold voice was heard. It's the lifeless bladesman, Lung Feifen. So, he is here for the time blade. However, he is in the giant blade star of the White Tiger Star area, which is countless light years away from the Firebird star. How could he know that there is a time blade here? That's simple. Recently, he must have something to do in the Vermilion Bird Star area. Then, somehow, he found out that the time blade will be auctioned in the Flamehaven city. That's right. These monster-level geniuses are mysterious and unfathomable. They like to wander around. Lung Feifen's participation caused a short silence in the auction house. The lifeless bladesman was too famous. They had to consider whether they would offend him or not, and whether it was worth it to offend the lifeless bladesman for a time blade. There were too many things to consider. 18,000 primal stones. Right at this moment, another young voice was heard. It was from the third VIP room. Hey, it's young Master Kang Yu. When did he come back? He disappeared for almost 10 years. Someone recognized the voice. Young Master Kang Yu was ranked third among the top 10 talents of the Firebird Star. However, that was 9 years ago. Ever since young Master Kang Yu had been defeated by Lan Xian, there had been no news of him. Some people said that he had left the Vermilion Bird Star area to train in other places. Others said that he had found a secret realm and was cultivating there. Young Master Kang Yu was the #1 blade artist among the younger generation of the Firebird Star area. His return had caught many people off guard and made them give up on competing for the time blade. The lifeless bladesman was not to be trifled with. Young Master Kang Yu was not to be trifled with either. 20,000. Lung Feifen continued to bid. 22,000. Young Master Kang Yu didn't flinch. 30,000. Lung Feifen didn't want to waste any more time. He immediately raised the price by 8,000 yuan stones. This price had already far exceeded the time blade's original value. Under normal circumstances, 20,000 yuan stones was the highest price it could go for. Beyond that, one could easily buy a better Heavenly King grade blade. Haha, the lifeless bladesman is indeed generous. I, young Master Kang Yu, will not compete with you. However, after the auction, I will have a good fight with you. I want to see if your lifeless bladesman's blade skills are truly lifeless and invincible. Young Master Kang Yu's laughter echoed through the entire auction house. What? Young Master Kang Yu wants to challenge the lifeless bladesman, Lung Feifen? Isn't that too reckless? Perhaps young Master Kang Yu is confident that he won't die. It looks like after disappearing for 9 years, young Master Kang Yu plans to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. No one had any confidence in young Master Kang Yu. No matter how much he had improved, it was impossible for him to defeat Lung Feifen. However, if he could make one move, it would be enough to make him famous. The auction items were presented one after another. Soon, it was time for the 20th item, which was also the finale of the auction. The 20th item is a small Heavenly King grade battleship. The starting price is 100,000 yuan stones. Each increment must be no less than 1,000 yuan stones. The bidding starts now. The puppet battleship was very important. It might not be able to increase one's battle strength, and it might not be able to protect oneself, but without it, one would not be able to travel further. In the starry sky, the distance was measured in light years. If one relied on one's own Jin Yuan to travel, one could only travel half a light year in 1 year, which was almost negligible. However, with the puppet battleship, one could easily travel thousands of light years, or even tens of thousands of light years, without any effort. The price kept rising, and soon reached 150,000. 160,000. Yi Chen's voice came out of the VIP room. It's him. Luo Yinkong and Yuan Qing looked in that direction. Lung Feifen, who was stroking the time blade, couldn't help but raise his head. Chapter 1040. Whether it was Luo Yinkong Yuanqing or Lung Feifen, Yi Chen was a mysterious person, a mysterious sword artist. No one knew where he came from, and no one knew his identity. Luo Yinkong Yuanqing was fine, but Lung Feifen was ranked 7th on the Sky King list. Apart from a few extremely mysterious geniuses, he had seen or heard of most of them. However, none of them could be connected to Yi Chen. Clearly, Yi Chen was most likely not a genius of the Heavenly King list. However, Lung Feifen was sure that most of the geniuses on the Sky King list would be instantly killed if they ran into Yi Chen. This was an instinctive feeling that could not be doubted. 170,000. The bidder was an apathetic yellow-robed old man. His eyes were half closed, as if he was not fully awake yet hiding an ominous glint. It's the Jingji King. He's also participating in this auction. The Jingji King was a famous king on the Firebird planet. His cultivation base was at the peak of the 5th layer of life and death realm. With his Jingji demon art, he rarely met his match. In the past countless years, the number of life and death kings who had died in his hands was uncountable. These life and death kings all died miserably, exploding from the inside out without a single drop of blood remaining. How unlucky. I originally wanted to bid for this small Sky King grade battleship. A chubby middle-aged king stood up. His expression changed several times, but in the end, he had no choice but to sit down dejectedly. Compared to the small Sky King grade battleship, his life was more important. The Jingji King was not a good person. He was a temperamental person who could not be judged with common sense. The appearance of the Jingji King caused the auction to fall into an awkward silence. The auctioneer smiled bitterly. It seemed that this small Sky King grade battleship would most likely fall into the hands of the Jingji King. Although he was unwilling, he had no other choice. Fortunately, the price had already reached 170,000, which was more or less a small profit. 180,000. In the corner of the VIP room, Yi Chen's voice came out indifferently. What boldness! He dares to go against the Jingji King. Many people looked at the VIP room where Yi Chen was, their eyes filled with admiration, as well as undetectable pity. 180,000. Good, another bid. Is there anyone who wants to continue? The auctioneer's face lit up. As long as someone increased the bid, the final price of this small Heavenly King stage battleship would definitely not be low. As for whether or not Yi Chen would attract trouble because of this, that was not something he cared about. The duty of the auction house was to ensure that every single item sold for a good price, nothing else mattered. 190,000. At the same time, he indifferently glanced at Yi Chen, who was sitting in the corner of the room through the transparent glass. His eyes were completely open at this moment, and they were ashen white. Anyone who saw them couldn't help but feel a chill in their heart. However, Yi Chen didn't seem to notice that Jingji King was looking at him and immediately called out the price of 200,000. Young people have too big of an appetite. It's not a good thing. I'll leave this small Heavenly King warship with you for now. Jingji Monarch took a deep look at Yi Chen, closed his eyes, and stopped bidding. So courageous, snatching the small Heavenly King warship from the Jingji Monarch. Some people shook their heads inwardly. He's still too young, and doesn't know when to stop. So what if he can win the small Heavenly King warship? Offending the Jingji Monarch, he's destined to lose everything, and even his life. The pugilistic world is not that easy to survive in. No one spoke again. The auctioneer said excitedly, 200,000 going once, 200,000 going twice, 200,000 going thrice. Sold. This small Heavenly King warship now belongs to VIP room 48. Congratulations. At this point, the Fire City auction had come to a successful conclusion. However, many people knew that this was just the beginning. Before, young Master Kang Yu had said that he wanted to challenge lifeless bladesman Lung Feifen, and now, Yi Chen had offended the Jingji Monarch. These two matters, no matter which one it was, were enough to pique their interest and curiosity. After paying 200,000 yuan stones, Yi Chen received a 100 meters long light gold Heavenly King warship. Putting it in his supreme grade storage ring, Yi Chen turned and left the auction house. In the wilderness outside the east gate of Fire City, a huge crowd was gathered. Everyone was watching Lung Feifen and young Master Kang Yu in the sky. On a huge withered tree in the wilderness, Yi Chen lightly landed. The Jingji Monarch didn't seem to have any intention of finding trouble with him. He was also watching Lung Feifan and young Master Kang Yu in the sky. He didn't care about young Master Kang Yu. Lifeless bladesman Lung Feifan was not a kind person. Even he, the Jingji monarch, had to treat him with caution. Geniuses were always envied. Even if you had thousands or even tens of thousands of years of accumulation, you might not be able to compare to dozens of years of effort. The universe was an era of great geniuses. Lung Feifan, perhaps you think that I, young Master Kang Yu, am overestimating myself. But soon, I'll let you know that I, young Master Kang Yu, am no longer the young Master Kang Yu from 9 years ago. The current me, even if I can't threaten you, can't be underestimated. Young Master Kang Yu's expression turned solemn. Strands of light black saber chi emitted from his body. Such a fierce saber chi. Many experts squinted their eyes. The light black saber chi on young Master Kang Yu's body was not simple. It was not an ordinary saber chi. Make your move. I'll give you one chance. Lung Feifan had no intention of drawing his saber. Okay, then I won't hold back. Young Master Kang Yu had never thought of defeating Lung Feifan. It was impossible. Lung Feifan was ranked 7th on the Sky King list. Even young Master Jinghong was far behind him. Young Master Kang Yu did not dare to say that he could defeat young Master Jinghong, let alone Lung Feifan, who was ranked 80 places higher than young Master Jinghong. He wanted to test how much he had improved in the past 9 years. He wanted to know how strong he was. He wanted to know if he could survive one attack from Lung Feifan. If he could survive this attack, it would be a great boost to his saber Dao. Roar. Unexpectedly, young Master Kang Yu did not draw his saber. He leaned back and tightened his muscles. The next moment, he was like a bow that had been stretched to its limit. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. An ear-piercing sound was heard. A bright black saber chi shot out from young Master Kang Yu's chest. As soon as this saber chi appeared, it gave everyone a great sense of danger. It was as if this saber chi was something terrifying. Saber chi in his body? Yi Chen was surprised. The black saber chi was not a normal saber chi. It was the saber chi that young Master Kang Yu had hidden in his body. This saber chi was not condensed from true essence. Instead, it was gathered from an extremely ominous aura and refined with his saber Dao will. No one knew that the reason why young Master Kang Yu had disappeared for 9 years was to look for ominous lands and absorb the ominous aura there. All of this was because of a saber Dao secret technique called the ominous saber chi. The ominous saber chi was a saber Dao secret technique created by the ominous saber emperor hundreds of thousands of years ago. This saber Dao secret technique required one to absorb a large amount of ominous chi, then use a secret technique to refine it into saber chi. Finally, it would be compatible with one's own saber Dao will, and one could only succeed after countless tempering. The ominous saber chi was divided into 3 layers. The first layer was black saber chi, the second was purple saber chi, and the third was multicolored saber chi. At the first layer, the ominous saber chi possessed enormous might. At the second layer, it could instantly kill most kings under the 7th layer. At the third layer, it could even contend against 8th layer life and death monarchs. After all, the ominous saber emperor himself was an 8th layer life and death monarch. Once the ominous saber chi was cultivated, a strand of saber chi would appear in the middle dantian of the body. This strand of saber chi would not go out of control after being shot out. It was extremely intelligent, similar to the defensive blade art. However, compared to the latter, the ominous saber chi was countless times more powerful. Relying on the ominous saber chi, young Master Kang Yu dared to challenge lifeless bladesman Lung Feifan. Go! Under young Master Kang Yu's control, the ominous saber chi streaked across the sky and slashed toward Lung Feifan. Not the righteous path. Lung Feifan stretched out his left hand and grabbed the ominous saber chi as if he was grabbing the sun and moon. Saber Dao is as vast as the ocean. Who can say who is righteous and who is devious? Scatter. Young Master Kang Yu's expression remained unchanged as he spread open his right hand. Swish. Sensing each other's chi, the ominous saber chi suddenly dispersed like a black mist, breaking away from Lung Feifan's control. It then condensed once again and slashed toward Lung Feifen from the other side. The ominous saber chi could condense and disperse at will, equivalent to a treasured saber in the form of energy. However, no matter how powerful the ominous saber chi was, it couldn't break through Lung Feifen's defense. His feet slightly shifted and his left hand once again grabbed the ominous saber chi. Almost no one could see how he moved. Scatter again. Young Master Kang Yu roared. Clang. An astonishing scene occurred. This time, the ominous saber chi unexpectedly failed to disperse. Like a poisonous snake that had its weak spot grabbed, it continuously trembled and struggled. Impossible. Young Master Kang Yu cried out involuntarily. As expected, his control over power has already reached a higher level. He has entered an unfathomable realm. Yi Chen's eyes were very sharp. Each of Lung Feifen's 5 fingers on his left hand emitted a different power. 5 fingers represented 5 different kinds of power. The 5 kinds of power acted on the ominous saber chi, making it difficult for the ominous saber chi to disperse. These 5 fingers could even easily grab a spiritual body without a physical body. It was like the Buddha's 5-finger mountain. Take a saber strike of mine. Grabbing the ominous saber chi with his left hand, Lung Feifen's right hand turned into a palm saber. He swung his palm saber at young Master Kang Yu from a distance. Puff. Young Master Kang Yu didn't even have time to react. His body was split in 2. Because he was wearing a top-grade artifact armor, his body didn't scatter even though it was split in 2. However, it wasn't over yet. Suddenly, millions of tiny saber chi burst out from the 2 halves of young Master Kang Yu's body. The saber chi wreaked havoc and shattered young Master Kang Yu into nothingness. Young Master Kang Yu didn't even have time to draw his saber. Even a palm saber strike from Lung Feifen wasn't something that young Master Kang Yu could withstand. This was the peerless bladesman ranked 7th on the Heaven King list. The spectators all took a cold breath and felt their bodies go cold. Chapter 1041. One blade with 2 stacks. Lifeless blade artist Lung Feifen truly lives up to his reputation. Silence Shock King's eyes narrowed into slits, revealing a dense apprehension in his eyes. Instant release of 2 stacks. Yi Chen also saw through the mysteries of Lung Feifen's blade palm. There were some secret arts or martial arts that would allow one's attack to contain multiple stacks, such as 2 stacks, 3 stacks, and 4 stacks. The more stacks, the more powerful the attack would be. However, strictly speaking, these could only be considered as ordinary multiple stacks, and the increase in strength was not too exaggerated. High-level multiple stacks combined multiple stacks, and with each additional stacks, the destructive power would increase by several folds. Lung Feifen's blade palm contained 2 stacks of stacks. Taking advantage of the instability of 2 stacks of stacks, he not only split open young Master Kang Yu's body, but also shattered it into nothingness. Multiple stacks were precisely the weapon that countered the undying body. It could easily make the opponent lose all blood, making it difficult for them to revive. It was like a super bomb. Haha, lifeless blade artist Lung Feifen's power. I, young Master Kang Yu, have finally witnessed it. I'm far from being your opponent. But, the next time we meet, I'll definitely impress you. Although young Master Kang Yu's body was shattered into nothingness by countless tiny blade chi, there was still a fingernail-sized red ball that was not shattered. When the red ball shattered, a dense blood chi pervaded the air. In the next moment, young Master Kang Yu's body reformed. Apart from his slightly pale face, there was not the slightest injury. Blood-amplifying bead, no wonder you dared to challenge me. Lung Feifen said indifferently. It's the blood-amplifying bead. This is a priceless treasure. Hearing Lung Feifen's words, many people reacted. The blood-amplifying bead was an extremely precious treasure. It had no other function, and its only function was to give the user an extra life. As long as one refined the blood-amplifying bead into one's body and stored a certain amount of flesh and blood inside, one would not be afraid of being shattered by the enemy. This was because only 7th-layer life and death realm geniuses had the ability to shatter the blood-amplifying bead. Below 7th-layer life and death realm, no matter how peerless one's battle strength was, it was impossible. As for hiding a strand of flesh somewhere else, such as inside a storage ring, it would not work. As long as it was separated from the body, there would be no way for it to be reborn after the death of the body. It was the law of the universe. Otherwise, if a strand of his blood was scattered everywhere, he would never be killed again. Under normal circumstances, the price of a single blood-diffusing pearl was at least 10,000 origin stones. Moreover, there was no market for it. Once it appeared, it would immediately be fought over. In other words, young Master Kang Yu had lost over 10,000 origin stones in order to challenge Lung Feifen. However, this also reflected his courage. That's right. If I didn't have the blood-amplifying pearl, I, young Master Kang Yu, would indeed not dare to challenge you. Young Master Kang Yu admitted frankly. Then, he added, of course, you still have the chance to kill me now. Don't worry, I said I would give you a chance. Since you didn't die, I won't kill you again unless you want to die. Lung Feifen lowered his eyes and said indifferently. Haha, thanks a lot. A faint smile appeared on young Master Kang Yu's face. However, he still felt some lingering fear in his heart. Instantaneous release of multiple stacks was not something everyone could do even on the Heavenly King ranking. Evidently, Lung Feifen's realm was not just limited to 2 stacks. If not for the blood-diffusing pearl, the latter could have killed him several times in an instant. Lung Feifen did not leave. Instead, his gaze fell on Yi Chen. Although Solitary Shock King's strength is not comparable to anyone on the Heavenly King ranking, if I want to defeat him, I'll have to reveal some of my trump cards. Let me see what kind of trump cards you have. Standing in the sky, Lung Feifen's long hair fluttered like blades. As the battle between Lung Feifen and young Master Kang Yu came to an end, everyone's gazes were focused on Yi Chen and Solitary Shock King. Solitary Shock King's cultivation base is at the peak of 5th layer of Life and Death realm. This is a huge advantage. Adding on the Solitary Shock demonic art, this youngster is going to suffer a bit. With so many people here, Solitary Shock King won't be able to kill him. Who knows if this youngster has a powerful background? But, he'll definitely be taught a lesson. That's not necessarily true. This youngster clearly knows that Solitary Shock King is at the peak of 5th layer of Life and Death realm, yet he doesn't leave. He must have some confidence in escaping unscathed. The chances are slim. The reason why he doesn't leave might be because he knows that he can't escape from Solitary Shock King. That's true. Everyone was discussing spiritedly. Luo Yinkong and Yuan Qing heard everyone's words and couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Does he need to run? I'm afraid the one running away is Solitary Shock King. You'll see in a bit that this is a powerful sword artist whose strength is on par with lifeless blade artist Lung Feifen. Solitary Shock King is courting death by provoking him. Outside the East Gate, the terrifying scene of Lung Feifen and Yi Chen's confrontation was still vivid in everyone's eyes. Those crisscrossing blade scars and sword scars were proof of Yi Chen's mysterious strength. Youngster, you still have a chance. Hand over that small Heavenly King-grade battleship, and I won't pursue your offense. Solitary Shock King squinted his eyes and said coldly. Yi Chen smiled. It's in my hands. If you want it, you can name a price. If I'm satisfied with the price, I might let you have it. Name a price. Sorry, I, Solitary Shock King, will never make a deal with a weakling. Solitary Shock King shook his head. Make your move. You will give up. A gust of wind blew past. Yi Chen's clothes fluttered in the wind as he stood on the dead tree. Solitary demon hibernation. Solitary Shock King didn't waste time. He leaped into the air and threw out a palm attack towards Yi Chen. All of a sudden, a terrifying black smoke gushed out like 100 ghosts marching in the night. Puff! The black smoke shrouded Yi Chen and the dead tree below him. The dead tree was instantly dyed black, as if it was made of black metal. However, this black dead tree exploded into countless tiny black pieces. These tiny black pieces continued to explode, creating a chain of explosions. The solitary demon hibernation art exploded from the inside out. Its destructive power was shocking. Hey! Where is he? Did he die just like that? Not even his bones are left. Everyone was shocked to find that Yi Chen had disappeared without a trace. No one knew if he was dead or had escaped with some kind of shocking method. What a domineering demonic art. Amazing. Suddenly, Yi Chen's voice came out from the remaining black smoke. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice and felt their scalps go numb. Yi Chen's figure was even more ghostly than a ghost. He was swaying left and right, and no one could catch him. Because he was so fast, he left countless overlapping afterimages, causing the black smoke to seem like it had passed through his body. He saw through Solitary Shock King's ultimate move in an instant. He magnified the weakness and stayed in the dead end. Lung Feifen's pupils shrunk to a dot. It was easy to see through the moves, but it was 10 times harder to be in the dead end. The dead end, as the name suggested, was a corner that was absolutely impervious to attacks. It was like the ocean current. If an ordinary person entered it, they would only be able to go with the flow, unable to control themselves. However, an expert in water would be able to move like a fish in water. He would be able to take advantage of the situation and stay in the gaps between the ocean currents. Solitary Shock King's move was obviously many times more complicated than the ocean current. However, Yi Chen's ability to see through the flaws was also many times stronger than an ordinary person's. It was as if Solitary Shock King's move had no secrets in his eyes. Could this be the selfless heavenly eye realm? No, the selfless heavenly eye realm is in the state of selfless consciousness. With Solitary Shock King's strength, it's impossible for him to force him to use the selfless heavenly eye realm. Countless thoughts flashed through Lung Feifen's mind. As a person who stood at the peak of the younger generation, he had seen many abilities that ordinary people couldn't see. He had used the abilities of most of the geniuses on the Heavenly King ranking, but after some comparison, there seemed to be some slight differences. I'm looking forward to the battle in the trial field of God. Lung Feifen slowly exhaled and thought to himself. When did such a powerful sword artist come to the Firebird Star? I seem to have missed many things in the 9 years I was away. Young Master Kang Yu frowned. In the Firebird Star, the only sword artists he was wary of were young Master Jinghong and Lanxian Right now, he was confident that he could defeat Lanxian but young Master Jinghong still wasn't confident. He didn't expect another mysterious sword artist to appear. How dare you ignore my Solitary Shock Devil art? You are courting death. Solitary Shock King was enraged. He turned into a black devil lightning and swept towards Yi Chen. Since his opponent's movement skill and eyesight were powerful, he would use close combat to defeat his opponent. With the obstruction of the atmosphere, Solitary Shock King's instantaneous burst of speed could only reach over 2,000 times his original speed. In such a short distance, he couldn't increase his speed to his limit, but it was enough. In a flash, Solitary Shock King arrived in front of Yi Chen. He raised his right hand and chopped towards Yi Chen's head. Just as Yi Chen was about to be chopped by the palm, suddenly a powerful sword aura burst out from Yi Chen's body. This sword aura disappeared in a flash, and Solitary Shock King's body was frozen for a moment. Kai! A sword light flashed and Solitary Shock King's head flew up. I won't kill you this time. Yi Chen didn't plan to kill Solitary Shock King in front of so many people. He had just arrived here, and didn't want to stir up too much trouble. After all, there were some people on Fiery Bird Star who could kill him. For example, the City Lord of Fiery Fire City, Mystic Emperor Fiery Fire, could kill him 100 times over. Who knew if there was a powerful figure behind Solitary Shock King? Hiss! Gasps resounded one after another. Nobody knew why Solitary Shock King paused for a moment. It seemed to have something to do with that sword aura. Although they couldn't see through it, it didn't hinder them from understanding Yi Chen's strength. After all, Solitary Shock King was a 5th layer life and death expert, while Yi Chen was only 3rd layer life and death expert. Skipping 2 layers and insta-killing Solitary Shock King was too exaggerated. Interesting, he is one of us. Lung Feifen's face revealed an undetectable smile. With a swoosh, he turned around and left. His speed grew faster and faster until he disappeared into the horizon. It seems like I'm still far from being strong enough. Young Master Kang Yu also left. He had to make preparations for the upcoming battle in the divine trial field. At that time, it would be the time for the starry sky geniuses to shine. After reconnecting his head, Solitary Shock King knew that he had bitten off more than he could chew. He didn't say anything and quickly left the place, cutting a sorry figure. Chapter 1042. It had already been a month since the auction had ended. During this month, Yi Chen's story had spread out in the Firebird planet. Everyone was guessing which lifestar this young man had come from. They did not think that Yi Chen was from the Firebird planet. Otherwise, how could they not have heard of such a genius in all these years? However, ever since that day, Yi Chen had suddenly disappeared without a trace, just like how he had suddenly appeared in everyone's sight. Elysium, the king-grade forbidden place, the desolate mountain. I did not expect that a super earthquake would happen in the desolate mountain, and the whole mountain had sunk in. It should be dozens of miles deep. But, the desolate chi down there is so rich. There must be some desolate stones. Although it had been almost 2 years since the disaster of the foreign races had ended, no one had relaxed. They were very clear that if their own power was not enough, and the overall power of Elysium was not enough, it would still be invaded by the demons and the evil spirit race. Only by continuously increasing their own power could they protect Elysium and the billions of creatures in Elysium. And the key to the desolate star, the desolate stone, was without a doubt the easiest thing for them to increase their power. Right then, there were a lot of life and death realm warriors in the desolate mountain looking for the desolate stone. They did not immediately go down to explore, but instead left the desolate mountain and spread the news to the others. The disaster of the foreign races had made them extremely united, throwing away their old grudges and selfishness. 1 week later, haha, I got a desolate stone. I got one too. So many desolate stones. There is no need to worry about not having enough. Everyone can get one. The number of desolate stones under the desolate mountain was beyond everyone's imagination. Finally found the desolate stone, Murong Qingcheng was holding a complete desolate stone in her hand, a smile appearing on her face. Not far away, Xu Jing was also holding a piece. Shu. 2 figures flashed past. Dugu Ju and Snow Sword of Gojosian landed on a strange rock, each holding a desolate stone. Obtaining the desolate stone meant that they were one step closer to Yi Chen. One day, they would enter the universe and embark on their own journey. This was a weapon shop on Fire City's West Street. This weapon shop only had 3 floors, and compared to the other weapon shops on 4 or 5 floors, it was much smaller. The shop was also a bit shabby. The signboard was new, and there were 4 large golden words on it, Falling Dust Sword Pavilion. There was also a sword and a leaf symbol on the bottom right corner. There was a shopkeeper and dozens of employees in the shop. Shopkeeper, what kind of person do you think our owner is? Other weapon shops usually have low-grade weapons on the first floor, mid-grade weapons on the second floor, upper-grade weapons on the third floor, and only semi-extreme grade weapons on the 4th floor. Although our weapon shop is just a normal weapon shop with only 3 floors, we can't possibly have semi-extreme grade weapons on the 1st floor. One of the shop assistants on the 1st floor was puzzled. The shopkeeper explained, perhaps the owner is trying to attract customers. Attract customers? I don't think so. The shop assistant shook his head. Although my eyesight is not as good as yours, I can still tell that the half-step extreme grade swords on the 1st floor are not much better than the other half-step extreme grade swords. However, the price is 2 times, or even 3 times higher. I think the owner doesn't plan to sell these half-step extreme grade swords at all. The shopkeeper was an elder with a clean look. He touched his beard and said mysteriously, "You only see the surface, but not the essence. The semi-extreme grade swords on the 1st floor are 2 times, or even 3 times more than the others, but the pseudo-extreme grade swords on the 2nd floor are 2 times more than the others. As for the extreme grade swords on the 3rd floor, the owner only put them out, but did not mark the price. He said that he would not sell them for now. Although I do not know what the owner's goal is, I am sure he has his own plans. Listening to you, it does make sense. No wonder the owner would ask you to be the shopkeeper." This shop assistant was very impressed by the shopkeeper, but was also very curious about the owner. "All right, asking so much is not good for you. Go and clean the first floor again." As he said that, the shopkeeper let out a sigh. After so many days, there were quite a lot of customers, but not a single sword had been sold. To be honest, he could not figure out the owner's plan either. Right at that moment, 2 customers walked in. "Sir, please come in." The shopkeeper came to greet them personally. "Hey, all the swords on the first floor are semi-extreme grade swords. Your weapon shop seems to be different from the others." One of the customers looked over and saw that the first floor was filled with colorful swords. With a rough look, there were hundreds of them. Although they were not out of their scabbards, they still gave off a cold and sharp feeling. The other customer nodded. But soon, he touched his chin and said, "Something is not right. The semi-extreme grade swords here are so expensive. They are at least 2 times more expensive than the others. Shopkeeper, what is going on? Is this some random price?" The shopkeeper forced a smile. "Dear customers, this is the price that our owner has set. I don't know what his intention is, but I, Zhongfeng, can guarantee that these semi-extreme rank swords are all genuine." As for the second floor, there are also pseudo-extreme rank swords, and some of them are even better than the ones from other shops. "Oh, really? Let's go and have a look." The 2 followed the shopkeeper to the second floor. The swords on the second floor were 70% less than the first floor, only about 70 to 80. Just as the shopkeeper had said, the second floor was full of pseudo-extreme grade swords. The moment they entered, they could feel the cold sword chi in their faces. Anyone below the Sea of Souls realm would not be able to handle it. Therefore, the most basic requirement for a shop assistant was Sea of Souls realm cultivation. The other pseudo-extreme grade swords are normal, but these dozens of pseudo-extreme grade swords are definitely top of the line. But the price seems to be twice as expensive, more than 100 yuan stones. Spending more than 100 yuan stones to buy a pseudo-extreme grade sword, I might as well spend a little bit more to buy a low-extreme grade sword. "Shopkeeper, who is your owner? Don't tell me he is making fun of customers." To be honest, the 2 were quite interested in these dozens of swords. The sword intent contained within them was actually attributed sword intent, which was extremely powerful. Its power was at least several times that of normal pseudo-extreme grade swords. However, they were too expensive, and not worth it at all. After all, a normal pseudo-extreme grade sword would only cost a dozen yuan stones, and a high-grade one would cost no more than 50 yuan stones. As for the top-grade ones, they would cost at most 8 to 10 yuan stones. The shopkeeper remembered the owner's words, telling him to bring the customers to the 3rd floor no matter what. He smiled. "It is indeed a bit expensive, but I think the price will be lowered in the future. You too, there are still some extreme grade swords on the 3rd floor. Although they are not for sale, you too can go take a look. When they are sold in the future, you can buy them before others." "All right, I am convinced by your owner. Bring us to the 3rd floor. I want to see how many extreme grade swords there are." The 2 had already given up on buying swords in this shop. If it were not for the fact that the extreme grade swords were too attractive, they would not even want to go to the 3rd floor. There were only 5 extreme grade swords on the 3rd floor. Cutting Star, low extreme grade. Horizontal Flow, low extreme grade. Blue Sea, mid extreme grade. Crack Gold, mid extreme grade. Cold Moon, high extreme grade. Fuck. There are even high extreme grade swords here. The sword intent contained on them has actually reached the 6th step. The 2 were dumbfounded. Their cultivation bases were not low, being at the first layer of life and death realm. They happened to be lacking an extreme grade sword. After visiting so many weapon shops, most of them did not have any extreme grade swords. Occasionally, they would come across one, but the quality was ordinary. Therefore, they planned to get a pseudo-extreme grade sword for now, and then buy it when they came across an extreme grade sword that they liked. I'm comprehending Metal Profound and Wind Profound. These 2 metal attribute swords are suitable for me. The metal and water attribute Cold Moon is even better. I'm comprehending Water Profound and Wood Profound. Horizontal Flow and Blue Sea are also suitable for me. Cold Moon is indeed good, but with my wealth, I can't afford it even if I sell my entire family's fortune. Upon reaching life and death realm, one would usually train 2 profounds. As long as the weapon's attribute matched one of them, it would be fine. Of course, there were also people who, in order to match their own profounds, would spend a lot of money to hire peak extreme grade blacksmiths to forge weapons for them. These weapons were usually compound attributed weapons, which meant that they contained more than 2 attributes. Gentlemen, my boss said that every week or so, there will be a new supreme grade treasure sword here. When the number of supreme grade treasured swords reaches a certain number, he will start to sell them. The shopkeeper repeated his master's words. What a pity, he's not selling now. Fine, I'll remember this weapon shop. Falling Dust Sword Pavilion, right? The 2 of them stared fixedly at the 5 top-grade treasured swords, wanting nothing more than to snatch them away. Naturally, this was only what they thought in their hearts. Any weapon shop would have countless formations and restrictions set up. Once these restrictions were activated, not only would they be trapped, they would also attract the attention of the city guards of Lifire City. At that time, they wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. After a week, a blue-robed youngster walked out from the backyard of the weapon shop. Boss. Greetings, boss. The shopkeeper and the staff bowed toward Yi Chen. Thank you for your hard work. Yi Chen nodded and walked toward the 3rd floor. On the 3rd floor, right now, my success rate of forging swords below the Heavenly King realm has reached 100%. In 3 months, I should be able to open for business. Taking out 2 extreme grade swords from his storage ring, Yi Chen hung them on the wall. If someone were here, they would definitely be shocked. 100% success rate, this was already a Heavenly King realm swordsmith. Only Heavenly King realm swordsmiths could achieve 100% success rate when forging swords below the Heavenly King realm. And, which of those Heavenly King realm swordsmiths hadn't lived for thousands or even tens of thousands of years? However, in comparison, Yi Chen's speed was even more terrifying. A week ago, the shopkeeper had said that there would be 1 more extreme grade sword on the 3rd floor every week. But this week, Yi Chen had actually taken out 2 extreme grade swords. This was simply unheard of. Even for a Heavenly King realm swordsmith, when forging swords below the Heavenly King realm, it would take about a month to forge one. The slower ones might even take 2 months. If it was too fast, it would be easy to fail, or waste the quality of the materials. 2 swords a week, this speed was more than 8 times that of other Heavenly King realm swordsmiths. Chapter 1043. The 2 newly forged swords were purple gold and blue gold. The purple gold one was called Purple Soul, a mid-supreme grade sword. The blue gold one was called Sky One, a high supreme grade sword. Purple Soul sword contained the metal attribute. Sky One sword contained the metal and water attribute, the same as Cold Moon sword. Strictly speaking, he was only a Heavenly King grade swordsmith in terms of metal and water attributes. If it were any other attribute, he wouldn't be able to guarantee 100% success rate. Of course, as his sword forging technique improved, although he hadn't started forging swords of other attributes yet, his success rate would also increase. Sword forging technique was the same. A row of 7 swords of different colors. Yi Chen nodded in satisfaction. He was currently in dire need of yuan stones because of the small Heavenly King grade battleship and this weapon shop. The small Heavenly King grade battleship speed was 3 times that of a small King grade battleship, and its consumption of yuan stones was 10 times that of the former. If the distance was short, it would be fine. However, if the distance was like the journey from Elysium to Firebird Star, which was close to 1,000,000 light-years, it would consume several thousand yuan stones. In the starry sky, there was an industry called the ride industry. The majority of life and death kings who couldn't afford a puppet battleship had no choice but to ride a puppet battleship. Under normal circumstances, riding a king-grade battleship for 10,000 light-years would cost 10,000 supreme-grade spirit stones, which was equivalent to 1/5 of a yuan stone. Riding a Heavenly King-grade battleship for 10,000 light-years would cost 2 yuan stones. Although it didn't seem like much, it was a huge profit for this industry. After all, they couldn't just carry a single customer. A large battleship could carry 5,000 people. In this way, even a journey of 10,000 light-years would yield a profit of 1,000 yuan stones or 10,000 yuan stones. A journey of 100,000 light-years would yield 10,000 yuan stones or even 100,000 yuan stones. However, the battleship's consumption was less than 1% of that. Yi Chen had bought the small Heavenly King stage battleship for the sake of convenience, as it was impossible for him to carry people out. As such, he had to bear all the costs by himself. For every million light-years, he would use up over 1,000 source stones. Ever since he had bought the small Heavenly King battleship, Yi Chen only had about 100,000 source stones left. Every time he used it, it would be less. In order to not have to worry about lacking source stones in the future, Yi Chen could only try his best to earn as many as he could in the early stages. As for this weapon shop, Yi Chen was renting it. Because the shop's business was not good, the previous owner rented it to Yi Chen for 3,000 yuan stones per year. Since Life and Death Kings had a lifespan of 100,000 years, it was impossible to rent it for only 1 or 2 years. Either they didn't rent it at all, or they had to rent it for more than 50 years. Yi Chen had 150,000 yuan stones on him, so he rented it for 50 years. After renting the weapon shop, Yi Chen's wealth had almost been looted clean. Now, he could only rely on selling swords to earn primordial stones. It was not easy to run a weapon shop. For this reason, Yi Chen took a shortcut. He bought several hundred semi-extreme grade swords from the market and placed them on the first floor as a front. Moreover, he set the price very high, 2 or 3 times that of other weapon shops. This was because he had no intention of selling them in the first place. He only wanted to put on a front and leave a deep impression on the customers, making them remember Falling Flower Sword Pavilion. As for the pseudo-extreme grade swords on the second floor, most of them were bought. Only a dozen of them were forged by him, and their prices were also very high. His goal was the third floor. He was very clear that no matter how well the semi-extreme grade swords sold, they wouldn't be able to make much money. Moreover, he didn't have the time to forge semi-extreme grade swords. As far as he was concerned, only supreme grade swords could earn him a huge amount of yuan stones. However, a few supreme grade swords wouldn't last long, and wouldn't help him build up his reputation. Therefore, he thought of an idea. He wouldn't sell the supreme grade swords for now, but put them there for others to see, letting them know that there were a lot of supreme grade swords here, and each one of them was extraordinary. Moreover, he wouldn't sell them for the time being. When there were more of them, it would naturally cause a huge commotion. At that time, Falling Flower Sword Pavilion's reputation would be established. Even if Yi Chen raised the price very high, as long as it wasn't outrageous, there would still be people fighting to buy it. After all, not everyone was an extreme grade sword forger like Yi Chen, who was a life and death realm sword artist with the destruction and immortal sword intents. Without exaggeration, most of the extreme grade sword forgers were only at Sea of Souls realm, and couldn't compare to Yi Chen at all. However, the truly powerful sword artists didn't have much time to waste on forging swords. Of course, for other sword artists, forging swords might be a waste of time, but for Yi Chen, it was a time to strengthen his foundation. The speed at which a person digested knowledge was limited. Why were some people who had accumulated knowledge for thousands or even tens of thousands of years not able to compare to geniuses? It was because their speed of absorbing knowledge was far slower than geniuses. However, even geniuses couldn't be infallible and make use of all the useful knowledge. The process of Yi Chen forging swords was also the process of digesting knowledge. Those details that he had overlooked in the past, as well as the comprehension that he had missed, would slowly appear in Yi Chen's mind. Then, after thousands of refinements, they would become Yi Chen's foundation, his foundation. Not to mention anything else, ever since he had arrived at the Firebird Star and successfully forged 7 extreme grade swords, Yi Chen felt that his sword Dao realm had increased by a lot. Before, he had merely reached the initial stage of no sword in hand and no sword in heart. But now, he had already reached the middle stage of this realm. When he attacked, there wouldn't be any fluctuations in his mind. Moreover, because his mind was free of distracting thoughts, The speed of his attacks had become even faster and more focused. The improvement of Sword Dao realm was also a great help in exerting one's strength. Although Yi Chen had stepped into the Palace of Strength Control very early on and had advanced by leaps and bounds to a point where he couldn't even grasp his limits, no matter how good his strength control was, it still required the coordination of Sword Dao. This was because Yi Chen was first and foremost a sword artist. In other words, strength control was the foundation of the foundation, and Sword Dao was to use this foundation in the form of Sword Dao to display 100%, or even 200%. The higher one's Sword Dao realm was, the more one could display the advantage of strength control. In addition, Yi Chen found that forging swords could also train his sword intent. He had the destruction and immortal sword intents. During the battle with the Troll Emperor, the immortal sword intent had broken through to the 7th step, while the destruction sword intent had remained at the peak of the 6th step. Under normal circumstances, it would take at least a few years or even dozens of years to upgrade the destruction sword intent to the 7th step. After all, the destruction sword intent was the strongest sword intent, which was much harder to upgrade than the ordinary sword intent. But now, he had a feeling that if he continued to forge more extreme grade swords, the destruction sword intent would reach the 7th step even faster. At that time, if the destruction sword intent and immortal sword intent were both at the 7th step, they would resonate, and both would advance rapidly. It should be known that the 7th step immortal sword intent already gave Yi Chen the sword intent protection ability. The 7th step destruction sword intent would definitely have a huge breakthrough in terms of offensive power. Chapter 1044. The extreme-grade metal Yi Chen had purchased in Blue Leaf City was enough to forge 300 to 400 extreme-grade swords. Among them, the metal and water-attributed materials made up about 1/5 of the total, which was about 70 extreme-grade swords. Apart from the slightly higher failure rate in the beginning, the success rate in the later stages was 100%. Therefore, with this 1/5 of the materials, Yi Chen had forged 54 extreme-grade swords in total. Among them, 25 were low-grade, 22 were mid-grade, and 7 were high-grade. It was not only because of Yi Chen's improvement in the later stages, but also because of the quality of the materials. The more powerful the sword, the better the materials needed. The weaker the sword was, the better the materials would be. When there were 54 extreme-grade swords on the 3rd floor, another 4 months had passed. Subtracting the previous 7 swords, Yi Chen had forged an average of 12 swords in a month. If this were to be spread out, it would shake the entire Firebird Star, no, the entire Vermilion Bird Star region. 12 swords in a month meant 144 swords in a year, and 1,440,000 swords in 10,000 years. Even if only 10,000 years of one's life were spent on forging swords, one would be able to create hundreds of millions of swords, and this was under the condition that one's level did not increase. Lifia City was extremely vast, occupying an area of a few thousand li naturally. The majority of the area was the outer city. The inner city only occupied an area of about 100 li. And the Falling Dust Sword Pavilion, which was located on the western main street of the inner city, had become extremely popular recently. All the life and death swordsmen living in Lifia City basically knew that the Falling Flower Sword Pavilion had a large number of peak-grade swords that had yet to be sold. These swords were all of extremely high quality, containing either a powerful immortal sword intent or a destructive sword intent. They were many times more valuable compared to other swords of the same grade. He Feng, have you heard? Mr. Falling Dust Sword will start selling those extreme grade swords next week. However, there is a rule in the Falling Dust Sword Pavilion, and that is, if the profounds do not match the extreme grade swords, they will not be sold to him. Your profounds just happen to include the water profounds, which is completely in line with the rules. Inside a tea house, 2 life and death realm warriors were chatting. They are going to be sold next week? That's great. A look of joy appeared on the middle-aged man's face. 2 months ago, he had gone to the Fallout Sword Pavilion. He had been waiting for the day the top-quality sword would be sold because he had his eyes on the Tsunghai sword. At the same time, everyone was talking about the Falling Dust Sword Pavilion. A week passed by quickly, and the falling dust sword pavilion immediately became the center of the West Main Street. Hundreds of life and death realm sword artists came and went. Among them, 80% didn't cultivate metal profound or water profound, but the remaining 20% still amounted to nearly 100 people. 54 supreme grade swords on the third floor were completely sold in half an afternoon. 54 top-grade swords cost me a total of 46,000 primordial stones. Why do I feel like I've made a loss? Yi Chen smiled bitterly. In the universe, low-grade supreme grade weapons were usually sold for 200 to 300 primordial stones, mid-grade supreme grade weapons were 500 to 700 primordial stones, and high-grade supreme grade weapons were 1,000 to 1,500 primordial stones. On average, a low-grade supreme grade sword could be sold for 400 primordial stones, 25 of them would be 10,000 primordial stones, 1,000 primordial stones for 1,000 primordial stones, 22 of them would be 22,000 primordial stones, and high-grade supreme grade swords would be 2,000 primordial stones. 7 of them would be 14,000 primordial stones, making it a total of 46,000 primordial stones. It didn't seem like a lot, but it wasn't a loss at all. Instead, it was a huge profit. Yi Chen had spent 20 to 30,000 primordial stones to buy the materials, but he had only used about a fifth of them. The top-grade swords made from this fifth of the materials were sold for 46,000 primordial stones. Not only did he earn back the cost of the materials, he also earned about 20,000 primordial stones. With these 46,000 primordial stones, Yi Chen didn't lack primordial stones for the time being. As for spending 150,000 primordial stones to rent the weapon shop, that was something he had no other choice. After all, he had to plan for the future. This famous weapon shop was like a mother hen, constantly producing primordial stones. If he didn't rent the weapon shop, even though 150,000 primordial stones seemed like a lot, it would be used up one day. At that time, he wouldn't even have enough primordial stones to rent the weapon shop. Right now, I have a 100% success rate in forging metal and water attribute top-grade swords, but I haven't forged a Heavenly King Stage sword yet. To forge a Heavenly King Stage sword, the main material must be Heavenly King Stage. Let's go to the Five Elements land first. That is the most violent place on the Firebird star, and it has nurtured countless kinds of metal materials. Yi Chen liked to finish everything he did. Successfully forging a metal and water attribute Heavenly King Stage sword was his first destination. White Tiger Starfield, in the deep starry sky near the giant Blade Star. A sabresman and a swordsman were facing off against each other, and there were two young people watching from the side. The sabresman was the lifeless sabresman, Lung Feifen. The swordsman was a young man dressed in blue, with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. However, his blue clothes were different from Yi Chen's. Yi Chen's was sky blue, while his was azure blue. The two young people watching the battle were a man and a woman. The man had broad shoulders and a slim waist, and a pair of wolf-like eyes. Obviously, he was not human. The woman had a voluptuous body, and was as beautiful as spring water. She wore a green dress, and carried a hexagonal short stick on her back. She looked both heroic and flirtatious. These four people were all monstrous geniuses on the Heavenly King list. Not to mention Lung Feifen, the swordsman in blue was the flawless swordsman, Zhao Wook, ranked 11th on the Heavenly King list. The inhuman young man was the strange speed Wolf King, ranked 14th on the Heavenly King list. The beautiful woman in green was the violent queen, Yang Feihua, ranked 8th on the Heavenly King list. Zhao Wook, the divine trial field is about to open. You don't have to fight me now. Lung Feifen said. I said that we will fight in 3 years. Now, 3 years have passed. Zhao Wook's eyes were sharp, and they could see through everything. Are you sure you want to challenge me now? I am afraid that you will lose to me again, and it will hurt your spirit. Why don't you save your energy and wait for the divine trial field to open? Lung Feifen did not want to fight Zhao Wook. Zhao Wook seems to be underestimated. Yang Feihua smiled like a flower. Zhao Wook is quite stubborn. He didn't challenge anyone else but Lung Feifen. The divine trial field is about to open. Who would want to expose too many trump cards? The strange speed wolf king shook his head. Make your move. Zhao Wuke did not waver. He had lost to Lung Feifen 3 years ago. 3 years later, he had to fight Lung Feifen no matter what. Lung Feifen was his shackle. Only by breaking this shackle could he improve faster. All right, be careful. Seeing that he could not dissuade Zhao Wuke, Lung Feifen's eyes gradually turned cold. His emotionless eyes were like those of a demon god. It made Yang Feihua and the strange speed wolf king, who were standing far away, become serious. This was the real Lung Feifen. Once he got serious, he would be like a demon god. Clang. Zhao Wuke took the initiative to draw his sword. His body flashed, and he appeared in front of Lung Feifen as if he had teleported. He slashed down with his sword. This sword attack was extremely fast and flawless. Dang! Lung Feifen drew his blade as well. He waved his blade and blocked Zhao Wuke's sword. The blade chi and sword chi merged together, shattering a small star nearby into pieces. It has begun. Yang Feihua and the strange speed wolf king did not blink their eyes. There was a reason why Zhao Wuke was called the flawless sword artist. His sword art seemed to be flawless. Be it speed, power, or accuracy, they were all amazingly unified. When the three were unified, the destructive power would be extremely shocking. Even Lung Feifen did not dare to be careless. Compared to Zhao Wuke's sword art, Lung Feifen's blade art was not any weaker. However, different from Zhao Wuke's, Lung Feifen mainly focused on speed and power. His blade was like a rolling thunder that could steal people's souls. As for accuracy, he had completely ignored it. For him, balance meant mediocrity. Dang, dang, dang. Sparks bloomed like fireworks, lighting up the sky. The battle between Lung Feifen and Zhao Wuke had quickly reached its climax. Even Yang Feihua and the strange speed wolf king had to pay full attention to the battle. Zhao Wuke, you are still lacking a bit. The blade light was like a waterfall. Lung Feifen sent Zhao Wuke flying with a single slash. Both of his hands were numb. Zhao Wuke was sent flying thousands of li away before he managed to stop himself. Lung Feifen, the battle is not over yet. A terrifying aura suddenly burst out from Zhao Wuke's body. This aura flashed for a second and eventually merged with Zhao Wuke's body. In the next second, Zhao Wuke's long hair grew longer, and his pupils turned into a focused silver color, giving off a feeling that he had forgotten himself, yet was extremely self-centered. The power was condensed into a single point. Selfless state. It's the selfless state, no wonder. Yang Feihua and the strange speed wolf king exclaimed. So you have also comprehended the selfless state, no wonder you are so confident. However, I have already comprehended the selfless state during our last battle, but you failed to force me to use my true strength. A terrifying aura burst out from Lung Feifen's body as well, making him look like a demon god. His long hair grew much longer, and his pupils were a deep silver color. The aura of his power did not leak out, but was completely concentrated within his body. Let's continue. The selfless state represented extreme single-mindedness. Zhao Wuke was not affected by Lung Feifen's words at all. His figure dashed forward at a rapid speed, attacking Lung Feifen. This time, the battle was extremely intense, as if it was in another dimension. The speed and strength of the two had increased by a few times. Most of the time, one could not even see their figures. One could only see the sparks from the clashing of the saber and the sword, accompanied by the shattering of small stars, lighting up the sky. Not only does the selfless state allow one to utilize their potential effectively, but it also allows them to unleash their power to an unprecedented level due to their instincts. Each of their attacks is extremely destructive. However, it seems like Zhao Wuke's selfless state is still a lot weaker than Lung Feifen's. Yang Feihua analyzed. How exciting, I can't wait to go up and fight. The strange speed wolf king licked his lips. You will definitely be beaten to a pulp. Yang Feihua rolled her eyes. Chapter 1045. Not fast enough, not strong enough. Jiao Wook, if you want to defeat me, your current strength is far from enough. Bring out more of your true strength, or the battle will end very soon. Lung Feifen held his saber with one hand, fighting with ease. Each slash gave the impression of a star exploding, or a heavenly river pouring down. Jiao Wook was completely submerged in his saber aura, drifting along with the flow. Both of us have reached the selfless state, but Jiao Wook is still lacking. The only reason why he could last until now is because of his precise sword arts. Yang Feihua placed her right index and middle finger on her nose. Her eyes were focused, watching every detail of the battle between Lung Feifen and Jiao Wook. Violent lady, you've also comprehended the selfless state? The oddly fast Wolf King asked in surprise. Yang Feihua smiled seductively. Do you really think that I, Yang Feihua, can't comprehend the selfless state? You humans are truly freaks. Your life form isn't that high, but your comprehension is so strong. I still don't know what the selfless state is. The oddly fast Wolf King wore a helpless expression. You don't rely on your comprehension to make a living. Plus, after so many years, you should have refined a lot of beast essence by now. I really can't hide anything from you. The oddly fast Wolf King chuckled, but his heart shivered. Although Yang Feihua was called the Violent Queen, she was not a muscular woman. Her eyesight was just as violent. Azura slash. Raising his saber up high, Lung Feifen slashed down. This slash had abandoned all pretentiousness, all honor and disgrace. This slash was purely a slash meant for slaughter. Once the slash was unleashed, it would only be for the sake of killing, without any external factors. This was the Azura slash, a slash with no emotions. Such a terrifying slash. Is Lung Feifen going to kill Jiao Wook? Yang Feihua was shocked. His soul shivered. Every single cell in Jiao Wook's body could feel the terror and mercilessness of this slash. He strongly felt that if he did not break through now, he would die under this slash. It was not without reason that Lung Feifen's saber art was said to be lifeless, where even ghosts and gods could not escape from it. Uncontrollably, the billions of cells in Jiao Wook's body began to squirm, spewing out immense power. It was as if they were operating in an overload. All of this power gathered in Jiao Wook's brain before spreading out in all directions. In the next instant, Jiao Wook felt as if he had been struck by an electric current. His soul felt transparent, and everything slowed down in his eyes. Rumble. The saber light and sword chi exploded, and Jiao Wook was sent flying back while coughing up blood. The saber light had already been shattered, but the saber aura was still suppressing him like an illusory saber. Kai. On Lung Feifen's cheek, a wisp of blood floated up, and a thin sword mark appeared there at a sharp angle. As expected of the flawless swordsman. At the critical moment, you have reached the edge of the selfless Heavenly Eyes realm. Putting his saber back into its sheath, Lung Feifen revealed a faint smile. Just now, if Jiao Wook had not broken through, he would not have been able to block that attack. Even if that attack could not kill him, it would have made him lose more than 90% of his power. However, there were no IFS. Jiao Wook had reached this realm after all. Not only had he neutralized 70% of the Azura Chop's power, but he had also counterattacked, causing the sword chi to graze his cheek. This time, the god's test field will be quite lively. Yang Feihua's eyes flashed with excitement. How could she not see that Jiao Wook had already reached a higher level of the selfless Heavenly Eyes realm? The selfless Heavenly Eyes did not only strengthen the eyes, but also the senses of the whole person, such as the 5 senses. It should be known that all of a person's actions depended on the 5 senses. Everything in the world had a flaw. Although it seemed like there was no flaw, it was actually because one's realm was not high enough. When the 5 senses reached a certain level, nothing could hide from one's perception. Cough. A few thousand li away, Jiao Wook coughed out mouthfuls of blood. His body was on the verge of breaking into pieces, covered with deep cuts. These cuts kept on wriggling. In a short period of time, it was impossible for him to recover with his immortal body. The destructive saber intent and saber chi contained in the cuts were still present. What an impressive Azura chop! Jiao Wook raised his head and fixed his gaze on Lung Feifen. Lung Feifen said, being able to survive my Azura chop, You can barely be considered as one of my strong opponents. However, if you really want me to go all out, you'll have to at least reach the selfless Heavenly Eyes realm. Otherwise, I'll kill you for real next time." As the last sentence was spoken, it was as if a demonic figure had appeared behind Lung Feifen. Still not going all out. Zhao Wuke had no idea how much of Lung Feifen's strength had been used, but he still had to thank him. Without the pressure from Lung Feifen, he would not have been able to reach the selfless Heavenly Eyes realm so early. Hehe, what an exciting battle. Lung Feifen, I'm looking forward to fighting you in the divine trial field. Zhao Wuke, you'll be even stronger the next time we meet. Otherwise, it'll be boring if you only have a few opponents. Yang Feihua had already left, her voice reverberating in the same place. She's moving so fast. Why do I feel like I might not be able to suppress her in terms of speed? The eccentric Wolf King rubbed his chin as his body gradually faded. See you two at the divine trial field. In the next second, his body turned into nothingness. Before leaving, Lung Feifen said to Zhao Wuke, "I've met an interesting swordsman on the Firebird Star. I'm not sure if he has comprehended the selfless Heavenly Eyes realm, but his ability in this aspect is not simple. Don't be careless when you meet him. Oh right, he's wearing sky blue clothes." Whoosh. Lung Feifen left. A swordsman in sky blue clothes? Zhao Wuke was slightly more cautious. If Lung Feifen said he was not simple, then he must be. The Land of Five Elements was located in the extreme west of the Firebird Star. With the help of the star-shrinking device, Yi Chen soon confirmed the location of the Land of Five Elements and drove the Golden Phantom there. Golden Phantom was the name Yi Chen had given to the small Heavenly King-grade battleship. In fact, the speed of the Golden Phantom on the Firebird Star was not even as fast as Yi Chen. Under the obstruction of the atmosphere, the larger the body, the greater the obstruction. The Golden Phantom was almost 100 meters long and 12 meters wide. Although it was streamlined and could reduce the obstruction of the atmosphere to a certain degree, it was still far from the human body. However, the diameter of the Firebird Star was only 27 million miles. Being a bit faster or slower wouldn't make much difference. Riding the Golden Phantom would save him a bit of Zhen Yuan. The interior of the Golden Phantom was extremely luxurious. Inside the hall, Yi Chen was enjoying the scenery outside the cabin while drinking the wine. He had been forging the sword for half a year, and it had been a long time since he felt this relaxed. After finishing a bottle of wine, they arrived at the Land of Five Elements. The Golden Phantom was shaking violently. Exiting the cabin, Yi Chen went outside and saw an earth-shattering five-colored wind blowing over. The five-colored wind could melt gold and bones, and only life and death kings could resist it. Putting away the Golden Phantom, Yi Chen descended. Swoosh. As soon as he landed, a golden light figure pounced over. Its speed was as fast as lightning, and its aura was exceptionally sharp. "It's the Gold Spirit King." Yi Chen's eyes captured the shape of the golden light figure. It was a golden creature without any facial features. Its entire body was made of golden metal, giving off a heavy and sharp feeling. Its right hand turned into a huge blade and slashed toward Yi Chen, easily cutting apart the five-colored wind. It seems to have no intelligence. Life forms formed from Yuan Qi had some intelligence. Otherwise, they wouldn't have become life forms. However, this Gold Spirit King didn't seem to have any intelligence. It only knew how to kill. There were no rules to its moves. It was the most primitive form of attack. Releasing his sword aura, the Gold Spirit King was frozen in place. Yi Chen walked over unhurriedly and pressed his palm on the latter's chest. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Each of his 5 fingers released a strand of sword chi. The 5 strands of sword chi interweaved together, forming a horrifying sword chi tornado that sliced the Gold Spirit King into nothingness. The sword intent contained within it even destroyed the latter's consciousness, making it unable to reassemble its body. Killing the Gold Spirit King was as easy as lifting a finger for Yi Chen. He gradually entered the depths of the Land of Five Elements. The Land of Five Elements was filled with all kinds of Yuan Qi living beings, such as the Gold Spirit King, Wood Spirit King, Water Spirit King, Fire Spirit King, and Earth Spirit King. In the area where Yi Chen was, the Gold Spirit King was the most numerous. "Uncle, we can't hold on much longer. Let's retreat." In the depths of the land of 5 elements, the demi-beast kings were killed one after another. Only the 2 most powerful demi-beast kings were fleeing in panic. Of these 2 demi-beast kings, one was a middle-aged man with a cultivation base of 5th layer life and death realm, and the other was a young man in embroidered robes with a cultivation base of 4th layer life and death realm. Their opponent was a powerful Gold Spirit King. This Gold Spirit King was twice the size of an ordinary Gold Spirit King. Its body was not pure gold, but rather dark gold. One of its arms had transformed into a huge blade, while the other into a long sword. Blade light and sword shadows filled the air, and nothing could stop it. "Even if we want to retreat now, it won't let us go." The middle-aged demi-beast king smiled bitterly. The dark Gold Spirit King charged over. Its right hand transformed into a huge blade, and a huge crack appeared on the ground. The ground of the land of 5 elements was extremely hard. Being able to leave a mark on it was already quite good. Only a 5th layer life and death realm expert could do such a thing. The middle-aged demi-beast king was also a 5th layer life and death realm expert, but his attack couldn't even break through the Gold Spirit King's defense. On the other hand, the opponent's attack could easily cut through his protective Jin Yuan. "Uncle, someone is coming." While fighting, the young man didn't forget to observe the surroundings. "Yeah, be careful. Those who appear here are not good people." The middle-aged demi-beast king retreated while fighting. Soon, a human figure flew over. Suddenly, the figure accelerated and flashed toward the middle-aged demi-beast king. "Not good. Be careful." The middle-aged demi-beast king was shocked, thinking that the opponent was going to hit him while he was down. Peng! The dark Gold Spirit King was blown away, its body shattering into pieces. Fortunately, he didn't hit him while he was down. But, what a powerful attacking power! It actually shattered this Gold Spirit King. This Gold Spirit King's defense has reached the extreme rank mid-rank armor level. The 2 were extremely shocked. This Gold Spirit King was not an ordinary one, but a 5 elements Gold Spirit King. Its defense was extremely frightening, and anyone below the 6th layer of life and death realm would not be able to injure it. Chapter 1046. The defense is comparable to the middle grade armor. As expected of the 5 elements Gold Spirit King. Yi Chen exclaimed in admiration. Supreme grade armors were extremely difficult to destroy. Even a low-grade supreme grade armor was not something an ordinary king could break. At most, it would leave behind a mark. For example, when Yi Chen fought Giant Demon Emperor, the low-grade supreme grade armor on his body wasn't destroyed. In terms of toughness, mid-grade supreme grade armors were 10 times stronger than low-grade supreme grade armors. From this, one could see how powerful the defense of 5 elements Gold Spirit King was, as well as how frightening Yi Chen's palm containing 5 sword chi was. Clang, clang, clang. The twisted sound of metal rubbing against each other rang out, and the 5 elements Gold Spirit King's shattered body once again condensed together. The golden liquid at the wound squirmed and quickly stuck together, and at the same time, his body compressed a little, making his entire body look even more solid and heavy. Just looking at it with the naked eye, it gave off an unbearable feeling. Every time the 5 elements Gold Spirit King is shattered, the strength of its body will increase. Unless it is destroyed in an instant, or when the strength of its body increases to the limit of its endurance, it will not die. Young Master, thank you for helping us repel the 5 elements Gold Spirit King just now, but do not fight it head-on. The middle-aged half-demon king reminded Yi Chen. Every time it breaks, the strength of its body increases by 1. Interesting. Reaching out with his right hand, Yi Chen grabbed the hilt of the Demon Slayer sword and turned to the 2 of them. "You guys stay away." Young Master, the middle-aged half-demon king was helpless and retreated far away with the young half-demon king. The speed of the 5 elements Gold Spirit King was very fast. With a flash of golden light, its sharp body was like a machete as it slashed over, but the fatal thing was not its body, but its arms that had turned into swords. It crossed its arms and slashed towards Yi Chen's head, and what was even more terrifying was that its body also released a circle of golden light domain, sealing Yi Chen's body. It actually has a natural domain. A hint of surprise flashed on Yi Chen's face. Bo, the sword domain was released, and the golden light domain was forced back. Then, the sword domain turned the tables and enveloped the 5-elemental metal spirit king. Yi Chen's sword domain had already reached the 4th layer. As soon as the 5-elemental metal spirit king was enveloped by the sword domain, its speed instantly decreased as if it had fallen into a swamp. On the other hand, Yi Chen's speed erupted, and he brushed past the 5-elemental metal spirit king's body. Catcher. The body of the 5 elements gold spirit king froze in midair. In the next moment, it was split into 2. It was not over yet. The 2 halves of the body seemed to be in the middle of a storm of sword chi, breaking apart from the inside out. Almost every metal particle was cut by a tiny sword chi, which was violent and dense. Second drive. The best way to break an undying body or vitality life form was to use multiple stacks. The first stacks would shatter its structure, and the second stacks would destroy it completely. Although killing moves with great destructive power could also completely annihilate the opponent, it was not like using a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. Multiple stacks were much simpler. Moreover, multiple drives should not be underestimated. The first and second drive were nothing, but the third drive was equivalent to a powerful killing move. The fourth drive could destroy almost everything, and the fifth drive was a forbidden area. This is the second drive. The young half-beast king's eyesight was not weak. Second drive. The middle-aged half-beast king looked at him. The young half-beast king said, 2 years ago, I saw a battle between the Sky King list warriors. Both of them could use the second drive. I did not see it at that time, but there were powerful warriors among the spectators. After listening to their explanations, I realized that the explosion was a phenomenon of multiple drives. In the end, one of them even used the third drive and defeated his opponent. So it was multiple drives. No wonder he could easily split the body of the 5-elemental metal spirit king. The middle-aged half-beast king said slowly. Shaw 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 shaw. Metal particles flew all over the sky. With a point as the center, they rotated and condensed. Because there were too many metal particles, the friction was too strong. That place, blazing flames and lightning shot out, and a fine whirlwind cut the ground. Even the second drive doesn't work. Yi Chen turned around. In the blink of an eye, the body of the 5 elements metal spirit king was successfully reconstructed. What made people despair was that its body became smaller again, which meant that its defense had increased by a lot. Since the second drive doesn't work, then the 3 drive. Raising the demon slaughtering sword high up, Yi Chen slashed out vertically. An intense red light seemed to seep into the space, dyeing the 5 elements metal spirit king dark red. Countless fine sword marks appeared on the surface of its body. Pa pa pa. The body of the 5 elements gold spirit king instantly exploded into millions of metal particles, which then exploded into metal dust. The dust was then annihilated into nothingness and turned into the purest energy, which was then absorbed by the 5-colored wind and blown in all directions, in the sky and on the ground. 3 drive, it's a lie, right? He can actually use 3 drive. The young half-beast king opened his mouth, unable to close it. Obviously, the 5 elements metal spirit king couldn't withstand the 3 drive from Yi Chen and was completely destroyed. I thought the 3 drive wouldn't work. That's right, although the 5 elements metal spirit king's defense is powerful and has no weaknesses, its consciousness shouldn't be that strong. Otherwise, it wouldn't have turned into nothingness so easily. Every cell in Yi Chen's body contained the rank 5 immortal sword intent. Even those who were much stronger than Yi Chen could only injure his body. They couldn't smash him into pieces unless they were 10 times stronger than him. If the 5 elements metal spirit king's consciousness was a little stronger, maybe Yi Chen wouldn't have been able to kill it with 3 drive. After all, for a living being with flesh and blood, having such a strong defense should be a body refinement king, and a body refinement king wouldn't die so easily. As for the multiple drive, Yi Chen had mastered it a long time ago. When he fought against the Troll Emperor, Yi Chen could use 2 times the power of his sword. That was the embryonic form of the second drive. At that time, he had just entered the Palace of Controlling Power, so he didn't have the time to study the multiple drive. It had been 2 years since the disaster of the alien race, so no one knew what level he had reached. You two, hurry up and leave. More 5 elements metal spirit kings are coming, and there's more than one. Yi Chen said to the 2 half-beast kings. Qinglei, let's go. Yes, uncle. The uncle and nephew left quickly. They had brought many powerful warriors to the 5 elements realm, but in the end, only the 2 of them were left. If the 2 of them were to die, the family would suffer a great loss. Time to enjoy. After the 2 left, Yi Chen could test his moves to his heart's content. He knew more than just the multiple drive. Jing Hong Young Master is back. He's challenging the Phantom Sword King at Wild Gazing Plains. Wild Gazing Plains, challenging the Phantom Sword King? The Firebird continent had 3 main cities. One was Firebird City, the other was Fire City, and the last was Jinghong City. On this day, in the tea houses, restaurants, and streets of Jinghong City, the news was spreading everywhere. Jinghong Young Master, the leader of the Firebird Planet's 10 heroes, had returned, and immediately challenged the Phantom Sword King. The Phantom Sword King was the leader of the Firebird Planet's 10 heroes 10 years ago. The rules of the Firebird Planet's 10 heroes were the same as the Heavenly King ranking. Only those under 50 could enter, and those over 50 would lose the right. The Phantom Sword King was 60 this year, and exactly 50 10 years ago. As the leader of the Firebird Planet's 10 heroes 10 years ago, the Phantom Sword King might not have entered the Heavenly King ranking, but it didn't mean he was weaker than the Jinghong Young Master. On the contrary, he might even be stronger than the monstrous genius ranked 90th on the Heavenly King ranking. A year ago, the Jinghong Young Master had challenged the Phantom Sword King and lost miserably. This time, he was here to wash away his shame. Only by defeating the opponent who had defeated him could he improve faster. This was the saying of the geniuses. Flawless sword artist Zhao Wook was like this, and so was the Jinghong Young Master. Wild Gazing Plains, a large number of life and death kings had already gathered here. Everyone's gazes were focused on 2 people. One was a young man with a ghostly aura, and the other was a skinny young man wearing a yellow robe. They were indeed the Phantom Sword King and the Jinghong Young Master. One of them was the leader of the Firebird Planet's 10 heroes, and the other was the current leader. Jinghong Young Master, it's only been a year, and you've already come to challenge me. Seems like you've improved a lot. The Phantom Sword King said indifferently. The Jinghong Young Master said, only by defeating you will I have the right to enter the God Test field. If I can't even beat you, then no matter how much I improve, I won't be able to surpass those people. Indeed, it's for the God Test field. Unfortunately, I failed in the first round back then. The Phantom Sword King looked up at the sky, his face full of emotions. However, I won't let you win just because I want to help you. If you want to beat me, you'll have to use battle power that surpasses your limits. Otherwise, even if you go, you'll still lose. Of course. What kind of victory would it be if you let me win? Under everyone's gazes, the 2 exchanged blows. They went all out right from the start. The Phantom Sword King's sword art was ethereal like a ghost, twisting its trajectory, while the Jinghong Young Master's sword art was fast. Is this the power of the leader of the Firebird Planet's 10 heroes? He's not even in the same dimension as us. The ground was sliced open, and the sword chi interweaved. The 2 figures continuously flashed, clashed, and brushed past each other before turning back to attack. This is the result of my 1 year of training. Take this. After hundreds of exchanges, the 2 were still evenly matched. Right at this moment, the Jinghong Young Master's sword speed increased by a couple of times, seeming to increase twice in a row. Third drive. The Phantom Sword King's pupils dilated. So what if it's third drive? Illusion and reality, overlay. Sword shadows flew everywhere as the Phantom Sword King's sword art was used to the limit. One bright and one dark, the 2 sword shadows overlapped and met the opponent's attack. Clang! The 2 swords clashed, and the Phantom Sword King's arm shook violently. He spat out a mouthful of blood as he flew backward. Third drive had already surpassed normal top-rank profound martial arts. The power of the 3 strikes was even more unbearable. I won. The Terpsichore prince was panting heavily. In order to use 3 stacks, he had received the cruel training that his master had arranged for him over the past year. He had not had a single day of rest. However, if he could defeat the Phantom Sword King, it would all be worth it. Li Jinghong, you've finally beaten me. There's still half a year until the God's trial field. I hope you won't slack off in this half a year. The Phantom Sword King was not dejected. The new beating the old was something that happened every day in the universe. He was not missing. Don't worry. From now on, I won't lose to anyone easily. The Jinghong young master's body released a wisp of faintly discernible aura, as if he had unlocked some shackles. You've already reached 3rd drive. Looks like I've fallen behind too much in my 5 years of slumber. Luckily, with Mr. Yi's guidance, I've successfully reached 2nd drive. Lan Xian was in the crowd. In the 5 years of slumber, she had been stagnant, while others had advanced by leaps and bounds. However, the stronger the Jinghong young master became, the more respect Lan Xian had for Yi Chen. If he could make her grow this much with just a few months of guidance, then just how powerful was his own realm? Chapter 1047. White Gold Stone, Dragon Spring Iron. Although the 5 Elements land was indescribably dangerous, it couldn't obstruct Yi Chen in the slightest. After a week, Yi Chen had obtained 2 kinds of heavenly king-grade metals, white gold stone and dragon spring iron. White gold stone was a kind of white gold stone. A fist-sized piece weighed over 10,000 jin, and one would feel a stabbing pain in the hand. This was the unique sharpness of white gold stone. Anyone below life and death realm would be turned into a hornet's nest just by touching it. Swords forged from white gold stone were exceptionally sharp and intimidating. Yi Chen had obtained a total of 2 pieces, one fist-sized and the other palm-sized. Both were worth no less than 2,000 yuan stones. Dragon spring iron was even more famous than white gold stone. It was a kind of water-attributed metal material. At first glance, it looked like a block of solidified spring water. However, its weight was even greater than white gold stone. A fist-sized block weighed 18,000 jin. Dragon spring iron was extremely tough, and its extensibility was second to none. A treasured sword made from it was a combination of hardness and softness. It could bend and stretch, and it could be wrapped around the waist. The 5 Elements land is indeed a treasure land. I actually found white gold stone and dragon spring iron. These 2 materials were among the top treasures in the books on metal materials. Obtaining one was a huge stroke of luck, and obtaining the second could only be described as a rainbow of luck. With the white gold stone and dragon spring iron, Yi Chen had no intention of staying. He directly flew into the sky and boarded the Golden Phantom, flying toward Firebird Continent's Flame City. Young Master Yi, you're finally here. On the first floor of the Falling Dust Sword Pavilion, Lan Xian had been waiting for a long time. Yi Chen was startled, then smiled. How did you find me? The Falling Dust Sword Pavilion's name has been rising in Flame City recently, so I came to take a look. I found dozens of pseudo-supreme grade swords on the 2nd floor that contained young Master Yi's sword intent, so I knew that this Falling Dust Sword Pavilion is related to young Master Yi. Lan Xian said honestly. So that's how it is. Come, let's go to the courtyard. There was a large courtyard behind the Falling Dust Sword Pavilion. 800 meters below the courtyard, one could forge swords. This was the complete Falling Dust Sword Pavilion. The 2 of them went to the courtyard, and Yi Chen brewed tea for the other party. Lord Yi, I hope that you will continue to teach me. I am different from my sister. She doesn't have a strong competitive spirit and doesn't ask for much. I, on the other hand, want to make a name for myself in the divine trial field. Lan Xian didn't hide her intentions or her competitive personality. She knew that she couldn't hide anything from this man. His all-seeing eye could see through even the smallest details. Yi Chen didn't reply directly. He flicked his hand, and an iron stake forged from star iron pierced deep into the ground of the courtyard. 7 consecutive stabs. All right. Lan Xian'er didn't know Yi Chen's intentions, but she didn't want to suspect anything. She stood up, pulled out the sword at her waist, and stabbed the star iron pillar. Then, she stabbed it 6 times in a row. Each stab is a millimeter deeper. This proves that you have the potential to open the selfless realm. Yi Chen could see that Lan Xian'er was improving with each stab. This sounded exaggerated, but it wasn't at all. A millimeter was hard to detect with soul power. The improvement was very small, but it was still improvement. This was something that ordinary geniuses couldn't do. Only geniuses who were constantly improving could do it. The selfless realm? Lan Xian'er had heard of it, but she had never seen it. The selfless realm is divided into the spiritual level and the ego level. In the early days, when we cultivated, we would pursue a state of selfless cultivation. That was the spiritual level. The spiritual level could allow one to be very focused, but it couldn't surpass oneself. The ego level, on the other hand, could achieve this. Hearing this, Lan Xian'er nodded. She wasn't a stranger to the state of selfless cultivation. Basically, anyone with a bit of talent could cultivate in a state of selfless cultivation. The ego level is to be clear about oneself and then forget oneself. Only by becoming familiar with every bit of oneself and understanding the secrets of one's body can one truly forget oneself and enter an unprecedented realm. This realm is the selfless realm that I speak of. The selfless realm had already been opened in Duguju, but that was when he was in a state of madness. It was unknown if he had truly opened it now. At the last moment, Lu Xiaoyu had pushed the selfless realm to the selfless realm, but that was at the cost of burning his life. It wasn't a normal method. Why were Duguju and Lu Xiaoyu able to open it so early? No matter how much Yi Chen thought about it, he still felt that it was because Elysium was too closed, so his cultivation couldn't improve. As a result, he was already very familiar with his own body. At every moment, he had to squeeze something out of it. That was why 2 of them had entered the selfless realm. As for Yi Chen himself, he surprisingly didn't enter the selfless realm. But he didn't feel that it was strange. The selfless realm was a situation where one already knew their limits. Yi Chen still couldn't determine where his limits were. No matter how much he squeezed, he could still improve. In the battle with the Troll Emperor, his repeated breakthroughs were proof. Moreover, his soul power was too strong, and his brain cells were abnormally active. This also increased the difficulty of opening the selfless realm. However, although he didn't open the selfless realm, Yi Chen's control of power had already reached an unfathomable level. To open the selfless realm, the level of power control must be high. This was the prerequisite of the prerequisite. If the level of power control didn't meet the requirements, the body wouldn't be able to cooperate. Yi Chen let Lan Xian'er study the basic swordsmanship so that she could improve the level of power control. This was to build a foundation for her. Then what should I do? Lan Xian'er asked. It's very simple. Continue to study the basic swordsmanship. This star iron pillar, after being smelted, is as hard as a low-grade armor. If you can pierce it with your sword within a month, I will give you special training. If you can't, then you should go back. I can't teach you too much here. There are many things that you can't rely on others. To open the selfless realm, the level of power control must be high. Lan Xian'er was still a bit lacking. Unless she was like Duguju and Lu Xiaoyu, opening it in an abnormal state, but that kind of opening had too many drawbacks. It wasn't the same as opening under the selfless realm. Okay. Lan Xian'er bit her lip. She knew that this was a test that Yi Chen gave her. If she couldn't even pass this test, then she wasn't worthy of being taught. Now, can you tell me what the God test field is? Yi Chen asked at this time. Lan Xian'er knew that Yi Chen came from some living world, so he might not have heard of the God test field. She said, the God test field is the true God test field. Inside is the mighty power of the true God. Only those under 50 years of age can enter. Once you completely pass the test, you will have the qualifications to enter the God Paradise. I don't know anything else. True God. The True God test field? Could the legend be true? Legend had it that the realm after life and death realm was True God realm. This was a legendary realm. Life and death realm could be found, but True God realm was not. Therefore, True God realm was a legendary realm. However, no one had ever seen a true God, and no one knew what it was. What kind of method was there to cultivate to True God realm? Everything was unknown. I also don't know if True God is real or not, but the God test field and the God Paradise have existed since ancient times. The mighty power inside is something that even the ninth sky of life and death realm can't see through, and they can't force their way in. I think the saying that wind can't come from an empty cave is most likely true. Lan Xian spoke her opinion. These things are too far away from us. When we reach that step, we will know whether or not it is true. Yi Chen didn't dwell too much on whether true God existed or not. Days passed by, and soon, half a month had passed. In this half a month, Yi Chen had already started forging Heavenly King grade swords. He didn't have much white gold stone and dragon spring iron, so he could only forge one Heavenly King grade sword at most. Therefore, he didn't dare to be careless and poured his heart and soul into it, leaving Lan Xiana outside. In this half a month, Lan Xiana didn't sleep or rest, working extremely hard. She knew that if she still couldn't pierce through the star iron pillar with triple force, she would lose her chance. As long as I reach the triple force realm, I can completely pierce through the star iron pillar. But how can I reach the triple force realm? Up until now, Lan Xiana could only pierce through 1/3 of the star iron pillar. She was 2/3 away from completely piercing through. Ordinary people would have already lost hope. It's a little difficult to go from the second force to the triple force in a month. Moreover, she had been asleep for 5 years. Even if I taught her for 3 months, it would be like pulling up seedlings to help them grow. This caused her foundation to be solid, but her understanding wasn't enough and she couldn't make full use of it. She didn't know when, but Yi Chen walked out. Xian Young Master Yi. Lan Xian was too focused and quickly turned her head. Think more and you can do better. You don't sleep or rest, and you don't give yourself a chance to think. It's easy for you to go berserk and create a knot in your heart. Yi Chen reminded her. But Lan Xian was very unwilling. How about this, in the next few days, you can watch me forge the sword from the side. It should be beneficial to you. Yi Chen felt that it was necessary to help her. Ding ding dang dang. Bright sparks flew, and the sword intent burst forth. On the sword furnace, Yi Chen constantly hammered the sword embryo. The iron hammer in his hand was like an iron sword. Every strike would produce a huge vibration force, accompanied by a peerless sword intent. This was the vibration sword intent forging method that Yi Chen had comprehended himself. It could fully fuse the materials together and use the sword intent to clear the meridians. Lan Xian watched from the side, inexplicably shocked. Normally, when forging a sword, one would have to be extremely careful. Most of the time, they would be testing it out. When the hammer truly fell, they would have already figured out how to forge the sword. However, Yi Chen's sword forging gave people the feeling of a sword artist waving his sword. It was continuous, decisive, sharp, and majestic, without any hesitation. Watching him forge the sword, one's heart seemed to have become a sword embryo, constantly being hammered and forged. Gradually, one's sword heart became clearer and clearer. This was both a sword forging method and a way to temper the sword heart. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.